now call to order the February 2025 Board of Education meeting. We acknowledge the traditional ancestral unceded territory of the Chumash, Tongva, Fernando, Tatavan, and the First Nation on which we are learning, educating, and living. Mr. Avila, please, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Avila.
Everyone please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and it's great to see you, by the way. All right, reporting on closed sessions, we had 2 items the board voted on. In the matter of readmit and record expungement of student 960031996, we had a motion by Vice President Ponza Kamkar, second by Dr. Weiser. Motion passed 5-0. The second one was in the matter of the expulsion of student number 960043800. Vice President Ponza Kamkar made the motion, seconded by Dr. Weisberg. That one also passed 5-0. Any adjustments to the agenda? Anyone? Dr. Weisberg?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Any items for future agenda? Dr. Weisberg?
I'm not sure if this needs to be an agenda item, but I'd love to explore the possibility of bringing back acknowledging our classified and certificated employees of the month. I know we used to do that. I would love to do that again. And also our certificated and classified employees of the year. And then I would like to agendize, I know we talked about this a little bit last summer, the possibility of ATB being open during teacher workdays. I know that there's an issue with prep time, but maybe it could be like a rotation. But I know a lot of teachers have been asking about making sure that they have childcare while they're at work. So I'd love to revisit that, especially with our schedule changing for next year.
No problem.
Thank you. And I like that, actually, both of them. All right, anything else? Any on my Okay. Can we have the roll call, please?
Member Cano? Here. Member Weisberg?
Present.
Clerk Tabbitt?
Here.
Vice President Pontra Kamkar?
Present.
President Agakanian?
Present. We have, all the members are here. We have quorum. 9 reports from the board and staff. We'll start with our student representative, Ms. Rose Elengesian from Burbank High School.
Good evening, Superintendent Paramo, esteemed board members Dr. Agakanian, Vice President Kamkar, Board Clerk Tabet, Board Member Weisberg, and Board Member Camo, and all distinguished attendees. It is a profound honor to stand before you this evening to provide updates from Burbank High School. I'm thrilled to announce that last Sunday, our exceptional Unleashed dance team triumphed at a regional competition, securing first place in 3 of their dance categories. Their dedication and talent are truly commendable, and we take immense pride in their achievements. As the president of Burbank High School, my foremost priority is to ensure that the class of 2025 experiences a year that is both memorable and productive. In response to the students' request for a traditional stage for their graduation ceremony, I diligently sought a solution that would meet our budgetary considerations while adhering to district guidelines. Regrettably, due to the constraints of time and resources, securing a conventional stage was not feasible. However, I was committed to providing an alternative that would still honor this significant occasion, which led to the proposal of utilizing a jumbotron for the ceremony. I am pleased to report that this proposal has received the approval of both Superintendent Paramo and as well as the City of Burbank. To support this initiative, Burbank High School has launched a fundraiser in collaboration with SnapRaise aimed at generating the necessary funds for the jumbotron installation. Each jumbotron is estimated to cost approximately $5,000, and after careful deliberation, we concluded that acquiring 2 would be best, bringing our total fundraising goal to $10,000. As of now, we have successfully raised $1,400 towards this endeavor. I would like to extend my gratitude for any donations from the community or board members, as they would be instrumental in our efforts to achieve this objective. Should we exceed our budget, any additional contributions will be allocated towards supporting the upcoming prom. Furthermore, the Instrumental Music Association here at Burbank High School will be hosting their esteemed festival Prelude tomorrow at 7 p.m. Our talented concert band, orchestra, and jazz ensemble will be performing, showcasing the exceptional musical talents within our student body. Thank you for your attention to these important matters, and I look forward to your ongoing support as we strive for a successful year. Any questions? Yes.
First of all, I'll commend you on the initiative with the Jumbotrons. Has there been any conversation between Burroughs ASB and you about co-fundraising so that perhaps they could be utilized at both graduations?
Yeah, so I brought it up to Lala a while ago. We were both wanted to do a stage, and then when we both researched, it was too complicated and expensive. So
Sure.
we found my solution was a Jumbotron, and I brought it up, but she spoke with their ASB and they didn't want to participate.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate the conversation.
So, Ms. Elengesian, where do we go to make these donations for people who are interested?
I actually have flyers that you guys can scan the QR code and even keep them.
All right, good. Maybe we should hold the flyer too for the public to see. Yeah, can we put it on the website? All right, thank you very much. Next, we have Lala Nestor from John Burroughs High School.
Good evening, President Agakanian, distinguished board members, Superintendent Paramo, district staff, and members of the Burbank community. It's an honor to present my report to you this evening. Yesterday, CTE Day was a success, exposing students to a wide range of in-demand industries and providing valuable information on the academic, technical skills, and training programs available to help them succeed in these career fields. Students had the opportunity to connect with various trade schools, programs, organizations, and unions, all dedicated to enriching their education in the practical arts. In honor of Black History Month, the Black Student Union is hosting a Spirit Week next week and an assembly during Extended AE on February 27th. In sports news, I'm excited to share that our girls basketball team defeated Pioneer last night, earning a spot in the CIF semifinals this Saturday against Rolling Hills Prep. The game will be held at Burroughs at 7 p.m. Our boys volleyball team is also off to a strong start, officially 2-0 in their season. Additionally, our Good Morning John Burroughs program has officially launched its new podcast, The Cub Club, available on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. The podcast will feature real stories from students on campus, offering advice, connection, and even just a good laugh. Lastly, our junior class is hosting a fundraiser tomorrow at Panda Express to raise money for the class of 2026. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions or clarifications? The one on Oaken Pass. It's like by Bonds.
The mic, was the mic on? Did you hear? I didn't. Oh, sorry. Any of my other colleagues? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Agakani?
Yes, sir.
Can I make a general comment?
Yes, sir.
In light of the desire of Burbank High School to have a Jumbotron, I think it's going to be important. I'll work with Dr. Macias and the principal, but we will have to really facilitate and plan the installation because depending on which high school graduates first, there could be a timing issue where we need to get them out early enough to take it down if Burbank High, for example, graduates first. I think you're on Thursday, right? So that means that somebody's going to have to be there Friday morning early to get all that equipment out before the Burroughs one starts.
In the past, we've also had Puerta on Friday morning, correct?
That is correct. That's what I'm nervous about. So I think we can make this happen.
Yep.
We just have to do the logistics.
Okay.
Or they can just leave it there and not charge for an extra day.
I thought that too. I just don't know if there's an extra charge for that, but we can find out.
It's a lot of, okay. Well, if you're listening, no. All right, and last we have, sorry, I have my glasses. Hike here? Oh, wait. Hike Sambatian from Monterey High School. Hike?
Before I begin, I do want to apologize that I was late. Today's actually my mom's birthday. I was helping her. And I didn't look at the time. Thank you. And thank you so much. Thank you. Good evening, Board President Aghakanyan, distinguished members of the Board, Superintendent Paramo, district staff, and our audience. The YMCA and Friends of Monterey joined us on Saturday to help clean our garden in preparation for starting our gardening club. Our goal is to make the garden a space that students can enjoy and utilize. Monterey thrives when we come together as a community, and we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to both the YMCA and Friends of Monterey who helped make our school a better place. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of the Garden Club here at Monterey High School.
Yay.
A special thank you to Miss Elliott for stepping up as our teacher leader. It's going to be a wonderful way to enhance our campus while learning about environmental management. I know I mentioned this last week, but it's worth mentioning again. Our Future Choices class is doing some really important work right now. They're focused on getting student scholarships, finishing up student FAFSAs, and students are enrolling in community colleges. We will announce our scholarship winners soon. We've also got some exciting news about our cafeteria. Students voiced concern, and it was great to see admin team who listened. Thanks to a new menu, we can now get more food. A lot of us were still hungry after getting our portions, so many of us have been grateful for this adjustment. This has been really great because we students voiced concern. When students voiced concern, Ms. Weaver and Ms. Shaw were there to listen and helped us in communicating with the district office. We are now able to choose from a wider variety of options and have the chance to purchase seconds if needed. Monterey's open house and resource fair is on March 6th from 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. We are inviting the Board of Education in our community to come see all of the amazing things Monterey students have been working on and get connected with some awesome organizations like GAIN, Credit Union, Los Angeles Valley College, Burbank Adult School, and the Burbank Arts and Education Foundation. This is a great chance for families to find out about all the resources available to us. We hope to see you there. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions from my colleagues? Hike, every time I listen to you, I keep saying hopefully you'll become an attorney, right? Serious.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Weisberg.
How do we beg Monterey to do open house not on a board meeting night?
Yeah.
It was the same night everybody else did. I checked with Laura that all the high schools are March 6th, right?
We tend to, one of the issues that we've run into with calendaring is that we very rarely get to go to high school open house. Because, I mean, it's hard, right? Like, almost all the Thursdays get eaten up by board meetings, so there's not much anyone can do, but I've made no secret about my deep love for Monterey, and so been a little open about it. So it's always a bummer for all of us, I know, because we'd love to be there, so please know that us not being there is strictly because we're going to be here and not because we don't triple negative. We want to support, we're just here. So
Yep.
hopefully, I know there'll be other opportunities to stop in and see the great work that you do. But please know that if you don't see our faces, it has everything to do with the board meeting and nothing to do with how impressed and excited and inspired we are by you and by Monterey.
All right. Thank you.
And then, yes. Laura, Khan.
I have two
Board Member
questions.
Khan.
One was with the garden club. In terms of, I don't know if guys have made connections with the Burbank Backyard Food Growers Club. It's this ginormous thing that just started up because when you start growing stuff, you're going to realize you have like way too much of it. And so that's what we've done in Burbank. A lot of people, we had just way too much. So we meet like once a month and we basically swap stuff. We have food swaps. So, I mean, that's maybe something, because I know there's a lot of extremely talented gardeners in that. I mean, they can grow, like they could do, right now they could grow a tree out of this, desk. So that's one. And then the other thing is, in the future, have you ever thought if you guys are successful of maybe taking some of the, stuff up like to the farmer's market or starting something like that to kind of integrate, math and everything. So, I don't know.
Board Member Khan, it's interesting you brought that up. For how many years have I been saying this? So, see, she's going to get mad at me now. I would love to, again, if the city folks are listening, to have you have the ability to bring this stuff to the farmer's market where the proceeds can go back to sustain your program. And I have seen in other districts, parents willing to pay a lot of money and members from the community. When it says Monterey Park, whatever, they will pay more just for that. And also will teach you about entrepreneurship and running your own business. So I love the garden idea, but let's talk more about how we can partner up.
I will
And-
definitely, sorry to cut you off,
Yeah.
I'll definitely inform Miss Elliott about the farmer's market and how we can help out.
Any other questions? What is your mother's name? Because she always comes to our meetings.
Kinetic.
All right, so everyone, let's sing happy birthday for Kanai. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kanarik. Happy birthday to you. All right, go enjoy your evening. Thank you very
so
much.
much. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
President Aga Khan,
Yes, sir.
I wanted to take a minute and address a comment that came from the board about the calendar and the conflicts that come with open house or back to school night. There's several pieces to the dynamics here. One is our board policy that specifically says that our board meetings are on the first and third Thursday. And so what lands up happening is we plug those dates in because that's what our board policy says, and then it conflicts with those dates. So the fact that we solidified our board calendar before the instructional calendar, I'm hoping we avoid that. However, I think that there is a bigger issue at hand. We have worked really hard to not hold school board meetings when there is a religious holiday, which means that we have several days that don't fall on the first or the third Thursday of the month. I really feel like we need to work with the board on updating our board policy, because at this point, we probably have more months where we're not on the first and third than we do months that we are on the first and the third. So I will work with Ms. Quinterio, and we can put something together and then bring the board policy back for an update.
While you're doing that also, can you look into, again, can we have a discussion about even a different day too? Maybe that can fix the problem. A Wednesday?
Absolutely. I don't have an issue with that. It's just really whether or not the city can accommodate us, but I will work with Cindy and we will work on that together.
Thank you. Just an idea. All right. 9B, Burbank Teachers Association and California Employee Association and the Burbank Association of Schools. I see none of the representatives here. All right. 9C, reports from Superintendent, Dr. Promo.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I'd like to yield my time to Mr. Cantwell.
President Agakanian, board members, Dr. Promo, colleagues, and community. It's with great pleasure that I get to introduce two of our newest employees to the district, and I'm going to invite them to come join me up here. We passed Measure ABC in November, and there's a lot of work, project management, bond oversight work to get this program going, and it's startup, just again having passed a few months ago. I was not confident that we'd find the right candidates for this position, that we'd likely have to go to consultants that cost about 3 times more. We went through one recruitment and we did not find the right candidates that we were seeking. We went through a second recruitment and we absolutely hit the jackpot. As some of you know, there have been a few of our employees who have decided to make the trek up the 5 and the 118 out to Simi. We are taking a few folks back now because Simi Valley happens to be winding down their bond measure at the exact time that we're ramping ours up, and so we were able to find 2 just incredibly talented individuals to help lead our bond. I'd like to introduce them. Robin Rickman. Robin has been working with school districts in LA County and Ventura County for more than 20 years in renovation of campuses for bond-funded school districts. Her most recent district was Simi Valley Unified, where she spent the past 4 years as a project manager. For Simi, she worked on the design and construction for the following projects: a kitchen renovation, renovation of the boys and girls locker rooms, a classroom renovation consisting of 60 classrooms, main quad landscape renovations with 2 shade structures, stadium light replacement, demolition of the multi-purpose room building, design of a new MPR with 5 science classrooms, band classroom, choir classroom, ASB offices, total value over $60 million of school construction just in her most recent employment. All projects require DSA approval, so she's very well versed in working with the Division of State Architects. That's again the state level agency that really is our building inspector, responsible for approving and certifying projects. Other projects that she's worked on include asphalt replacement, new parking lots, irrigation, portable certifications, and she managed more than 30 projects in LA Unified Valley region. Robin is a California native who grew up in the Los Angeles area, spent her vacations camping with her family in most of the West Coast states, and she continues to camp and travel with her now grown children. And she enjoys gardening, cooking Italian cuisine, and Hawaii. Welcome, Robin. I'm also pleased to be able to announce and introduce Malihe Shakuhai.
That's right.
She was born and raised in Iran. After finishing high school, she received a scholarship to pursue her architectural degree. After graduating second in her class, she was not able to find an architectural job in Iran because of being a woman. She began her career in Amman, Jordan, under the guidance of a renowned architect, the late Dr. Diran, who had designed and constructed the Queen Mother's Palace in Amman, one of her crowning career achievements. A couple years later, she moved to San Francisco and worked at a small architectural office where she learned AutoCAD. She then relocated to Southern California, starting working on school projects. In a few years, she transitioned to consulting as design manager at LA Unified. In this role, Malihe collaborated with architects and engineers for 6 years, honing her skills in project management. Subsequently, she worked as a construction manager for Simi Unified for 8.5 years. And her recent experience in Simi Valley has prepared her to take on similar projects here in Burbank. As a single mother, Malihe notes that she had the privilege of raising 2 remarkable sons since they were 4 and 6 years old. Today, her younger son works in the contract and pricing division at Northrop Grumman, while her older son is a director of operations for a health food store chain. She also has a 4-year-old grandson who she says has brought much joy to all their lives. And in her free time, she enjoys hiking and exploring new destinations. In fact, she's looking forward to visiting Japan later this year. So as you heard from those biographies, we really did hit the jackpot. I am so excited to be working with both of them as they really help lead our bond initiative here in this early stage. So welcome to both of you.
Just wanted to welcome you. Salam alaikum, khosh amadid. Very mamnoon. Well, anyone from Iran, whether engineer or architect, one of the above. Sorry.
Thank you.
All right. Any guess, Dr. Paramo?
No, that is it for me.
Thank you. 10, request to address the board, public communication on agenda items. Any individual or group representative present this evening may address the Board of Education on any agenda items or any subject within the jurisdiction of the school board by completing a white request card and turning it into Ms. Quintero. Speakers are requested to state their name prior to speaking to the board. Not more than 5 minutes may be allowed to each speaker except by unanimous consent of the Board of Education. The superintendent may refer the matter to the proper department for review. The district is providing alternatives to in-person attendance for viewing and participation. Do we have any cards? And anyone online? Or all right. Okay. Thank you. All right. We're going back now, but there is no comments on that one, so we'll continue that. Yeah. All right. All right. Reports to the board. 11A. 24-25 LCAP mid-year update. Dr. Anders.
Good evening, President Aga Khanyan, members of the board, BUSD staff, Dr. Paramo, community at home. My name is Robin Anders, Director of Instructional Technology and Accountability for Burbank Unified School District. Apologize tonight, I have a little bit of tickle in my throat, so please bear with me if I need a break or a drink of water here and there. We are doing our mid-year update to our LCAP process. This is a requirement by the state. We have a deadline of February to do that with our school board. We had this prepared for the previous month. No changes have really been made to this presentation. We just needed time to work with our union partners within the district and a little time to make sure that we met with staff before information was discussed publicly. And tonight is an opportunity to do that. It's an opportunity to make sure our board is aware of our budgeting process and discussions in our LCAP meetings for this year as we move forward with the process into May and June when we will finalize a plan for next year. Part of that process is also looking at where we are this year with our metrics and with our spending on our current actions for this year's plan. Just a quick reminder, this is a 3-year plan. This is year 1 of our plan. At the 3-year interval, we are able to change our goals and make significant changes to the LCAP. Year to year within that 3-year window, we can make modifications within those goals and redirect funds as we see needed based off the needs of our students. So that's part of our discussion this evening. I'm going to start first with a quick overview of our LCAP metrics. They're extensive. We have quite a few metrics. Many of them are required by the state for us to include and look at specific subgroups and also look at specific performance on CASP assessments, state assessments, as well as some other requirements such as a school satisfaction survey. Those are just examples of some of the metrics that we specifically look at. A couple of highlights that I want to make sure, and these are included in our appendix, but again, they are extensive, so I did not want to go through these one by one, but if anybody at home or anybody that's come to our LCAP meetings knows, we do go through these. In fact, just last week we went through all of our Goal 1 metrics on our academic goal and specificity and discussion. We'll do the same for our Goal 2 next week and go through all of those metrics as well. But the couple of highlights that I'd like to make sure we discuss when it comes to these metrics, in both Goal 1 and Goal 2, a shining metric for both those goals is our graduation rate. Last year, we were at 96% as a district. Schools like Monterey just knocked it out of the park with their graduation rate. So almost all of our subgroups met our growth for our 3 years. So again, we don't measure and we're not finalizing our metrics until the end of 3 years, but many of these are right on track and doing really well when it comes to graduation. And so if I go back to our summary, you can see that we had 22 on track metrics in our instructional goal. And there's also a lot of metrics for our graduation rate within Goal 2 as well. So that contributed significantly to our success there. An area of mixed results is our English learners. And the reason I say that is we are doing an excellent job of helping our English learners make progress towards becoming English proficient. The challenge is that population is changing every year, and we're being judged on the students that are in that demographic year to year. Let me unpack that a little further.
Please.
When we reclassify students, they're moving out of that subgroup to some degree. And what we're getting is new students into that subgroup that are new to the country and learning English probably for the first time. So we're never really looking at apples to apples each year. We're getting new kids in and not really able to count those kids that we've moved on. So the metric of helping all students move towards progress is a really valuable metric because it shows that we're helping newcomers, and we're also helping our kids that have been with us 2 or 3 years move out of the English language development program and be in general education setting. That's a really good metric. The other metrics that are mixed is the reclassification rate. That went down, and the reason being is we've been seeing a significant influx of students that are new to the country in the last year or two. That also, we saw a significant bubble of students that got reclassified post-pandemic when they came back to in-person school and really developed that English language acquisition. And so our reclassification rate was really high for a couple of years, and now we're seeing a little bit of a dip because we've moved a lot of kids out of that program. The other mixed result is when it comes to our performance on the CASP, the English Language Arts and Math, that's a subgroup that we really wanted to work hard to help move towards proficiency or increase the percentage of students that are proficient. And we didn't hit that mark. So we're doing really well in a lot of areas when it comes to our English learners, but there's still work to be done. And we want to make sure we monitor that. The last piece that I want to identify is an area for us of importance and attention, and that is our A through G rate and our college and career indicator. We strongly believe that we can make progress in this area. We set lofty goals, and we didn't move as much as we wanted or didn't move in the right direction in some of those areas. We have plans in place for college and career indicator. We're identifying additional they're not metrics, but they're programs that we can use to qualify students as college and career ready. And so we hope to really make sure that we get that put through in our data this year to claim some of the work that we're already doing. There's also some cleanup that we need to make sure we do. We have students that are under-identified for A through G because they've taken A through G classes in middle school. And so we'll do as best we can to audit all of that data to make sure that typically all students are like 80 to 90% of our students are automatically identified. We have to manually identify some students through that process. So we'll continue to make sure that we do that. That's in addition to all the work we've been doing with the Math Collaborative, which I'll talk about in the next presentation. We're also getting an English Collaborative off the ground, as those are two areas where our students really struggle with earning a C or better to be A through G eligible. But overall, 37 on track, 19 off track, and you can see the bulk of our metrics are in our instructional services. That's also where the majority of our spending is. We have 8 that are yet to be determined. Most of those are local measures such as grades, grade distribution, or local assessments that we haven't finished for the year. So we still need to get the results from our spring. I'm going to move forward to budget. This is an important slide for anyone that's new to the LCAP process. This is something we talk about at every LCAP meeting because these students that are in these demographics are the students who bring funding to us as a district for our supplemental grant or supplemental dollars. That is what our LCAP is. That's the spending that we determine through the LCAP. These are in addition or supplemental to our general fund. So think of general fund as the base funding you need to run a district and create classrooms and have teachers in those classrooms. Supplemental is the little bit of extra funding that we get to provide additional services to students. Those services need to be directed towards these students. So when you see the list up here of free and reduced meal program, foster, homeless, and English learners, because these funds come in to support these learners, these are the students we need to support with these dollars. And so every year we're going through a process of looking what are the needs of this community and how are we best going to serve those students with our dollars. It changes year to year. It changes with the enrollment. And it changes with the needs of our community, and it's something we have to go through why we have this LCAP process. One thing I want to point out on this slide specifically is we've had the opportunity to really increase our free and reduced meal applications. We campaigned really hard this fall to make sure that parents and families were aware that this is more than just a meal. Each student is worth about approximately $2,000 in revenues to our district if they complete that free and reduced meal application. Part of that $2,000 is for LCAP dollars. I have more exciting news in that area is our outgoing Director of Food Services and myself were able to create an income survey for our families. So the process by which to be determined a free and reduced meal student has been simplified. They don't have to go through an entire meal application, which a lot of our families, especially under our current administration, is concerning to share some of that information about who is in their household and income information. This is a very, very simple survey about how many in your household and what is your income. That is it. So we anticipate we will see a lot more families fill this out because it is a much more simple process and there's not so many concerns about providing information at home. So we're excited to see our numbers come in next year. These are our LCAP goal expenditures. So this is what was budgeted and this is where we are at first interim. We could see we have about $9.5 million in spending for instructional services and our goals, our actions within that goal. 2.5 for educational services. Think of educational services supporting the whole child, not just academics. And then we have personnel services, which is a lot of our work with diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can see our carryover amount going into this year and our projected carryover going into next year, which is the story of our budget conversation. This slide really well represents why we've seen declining dollars for our LCAP. You can see that we had a significant amount of carryover in 21-22. This was in part due because of one-time dollars during the COVID pandemic, ESSER funds, as well as other state and federal funds, allowed us to sort of make a reserve with our supplemental budget. Those monies had to be spent. They were one time and had a shelf life that they expired or we had to give them back. LCAP monies are included in our budget and we get to carry those over. So we carried them over for a rainy day and here we are. We've spent those down about $1 million each year. We've exhausted that carryover and that's why we're still making decisions. Some of the same hard decisions we've had to make in the last year or two with personnel. It's important to point out that the LCAP is 90% or probably more than 90% personnel costs. So when we're talking about making any cuts or having to reduce any budget, the first place we have to look is our personnel. The ending fund balance, if we did nothing different next year, would be to a negative about $500,000. So that's if we didn't make any adjustments or changes. So we started this year with our initial conversation of we have to reduce by $500,000 in next year's budget, otherwise we'll be overspending.
Dr. Anders or Dr. Pramo, can you just, and I know we've talked about this in our individual LCAP meetings, and I certainly want to encourage people to attend those to go more in depth, but can you talk a little bit about, there's an argument to be made, sometimes you have to deficit spend, right? But we're not allowed, because there are other entities above us, can you talk a little bit about why we can't just continue to deficit spend, beyond the fact that it's not a wise move to make, period?
First off, the county will not approve our plan.
This is where I wanted, yeah, right. So, and then what happens, so let's say hypothetically, they don't approve our plan, then what happens?
They'd make us come back with a new plan.
Right. But at what point, and I know there's always also issues with the threat of somebody else coming in and taking over our budgetary process. And I bring this up, I know we all know this, but I think it's really important for our community to understand that $475,000 in the whole may not seem like a lot. One, it is a lot, and two, there are very serious repercussions for us being able to retain that local control and decide how our money is best spent. So I don't know if Mr. Cantwell or Dr. Pramo or Dr. Anders, you want to elaborate a little bit?
Go ahead.
Can I add to what you just said a second? Because the 475 in the hole for next year is after we've made some significant cuts.
That's correct.
Over the last 10 years even.
Correct.
And so the community needs to know that too, that it's not just all of a sudden this happened. It's been ongoing.
Well, I think what the community needs to understand is that we have a fiduciary responsibility to present a budget to the county and to the state on how we're going to spend dollars. And the requirement is that we're presenting them something that is viable. And if we can't do that, then we will lose the privilege of deciding how we spend our own money. So that is why it's so important. You can't just choose to deficit spend. This has to be a balanced budget, and it needs to go to the county, and it needs to be approved. So as you can see from the previous slide that was shown, we have, over the last 3 years, have had significantly less carryover. So in order to meet and balance our budget, we have been having to cut services that had been very plentiful in the LCAP plan before. So that was the focus of our discussion since the start of the school year. At the start of the school year, our communication with cabinet, executive cabinet, with PTA, with principals, with the community has been, this is our situation. Here's our LCAP plan, here's our LCAP budget, and we need to cut $500,000. So in the beginning, that's what everything was focused on. It came from that lens, the lens of how do we cut $500,000? And that is not new to our process. When we have been in this situation, meaning the last couple years, we've started every season looking at that. And through the course of the year, September all the way until June, we are scrutinizing the plan, looking at where we can make cuts that hopefully aren't having negative impacts on kids or the classroom. And we are evaluating programs, we're evaluating how we're serving kids to figure out how best to cut a budget and still provide services. I will give a quick example. I know it was a year ago, but last year we cut a significant amount of money. And it wasn't just the money that we were overspending. We cut hundreds of thousands of dollars above and beyond that because we saw that there was an influx of immigrant kids that needed services that we were not providing. So in order to provide those services, we had to find areas to cut in the LCAP plan so that we could implement them. That process is exactly the process we went through this year. And so this year, when we go through the presentation, you're going to see that we are proposing cuts that exceed the $500,000. It's because we feel that there are other needs that we have based on our current situation, which is what the LCAP process is all about. That is the reason we have an LCAP and why we have this process.
Yeah, just for context too, with last year, we cut, removed the summer school program, which was a significant expenditure. That's been outsourced to online schools or regional area schools that can provide those services to our students at no cost to us. We eliminated intervention specialists at secondary last year. We also took counselors out of the LCAP. So secondary really took a hit last year. But we are in the situation that we are in, and everyone is valuable and provides a service to us. But these are the decisions that we're forced to reckon with when we need to balance a budget. So we're going to move right into that conversation. This slide identifies areas where we feel like we can reduce or remove items from the LCAP for next year. Again, not this year, but next year. Like Dr. Paramo said, the conversation started early in the year about how we were going to reduce by $500,000. We had to identify a big ticket item or some big ticket items to get to that dollar amount. This is a process, in some ways exhausting. I can only assure you that I've updated our planning documents multiple times as the conversation continues and we get feedback from our stakeholder or our educational partners as far as what we think is the right direction to go. As we do that and we think about our current situation, one of the issues that rose to the top was behaviors, significant behaviors, especially in our elementary schools, dysregulated students. Students that are new to the country that have had significant trauma, students that had little to no supervision for 2 or 3 years during the pandemic. These students need a lot of support. and not necessarily academically. This is Bloom's taxonomy, that if we can't take care of their basic needs first, they are not going to learn in our schools. It's also taking care of the other students in the classroom so they feel safe when there's students that have significant behaviors that we need to address. So that's part of all this conversation of what are our needs and where do we think we can reduce. And so these are the items. Secondary summer school to the tune of $30,000. This is some of the last funding that we had to summer school last year that we feel like we can do without and still provide the program that we were able to provide. So it should not change any of our summer school offerings. Hanover Research Group, remove funding for mental health survey. This was, be more specific than mental health survey, this is specifically for our care centers to work with our sites, our 2 high schools, to determine the value and quality of the service to our students and make an informed decision on what direction we go with our care centers. DEI consultant, this was determined we would not fill this position this year. And so this isn't removing something that we have currently. It's just taking it out of the LCAP because we've been able to use in-house staff to drive this work. Elementary curriculum specialists, there's two identified in this to be reduced. Those are actually going to become assistant principal positions at 2 of our larger elementary schools. So while this is a reduction, we have a plan in place to make those schools whole and actually fill a need that both those schools have. Elementary intervention specialists, this is a $1 million item. This is one of the big items that we had to identify early in the process to make our budget work. There's been a lot of discussion about this item specifically and the services they provide and being able to provide the necessary services for our students going forward. It'll be a piece that we probably discuss a little further this evening, as they are valuable to us and as part of our budget process to look at this group and see what our needs are going forward for next year. Response to intervention, RTI, we're looking at a $75,000 reduction there. Reason for that is we typically increase the dollar amount year to year based on the fact that staff get more expensive. They move up the salary scale and benefits cost more. So we actually over budgeted that item by how much the sites are actually spending. So it doesn't mean we're removing any services to RTI, it just means we're not able to grow it. And that'll work out just fine. DEI collaboration time for schools, that is about $30,000 or $40,000 item, if I remember it correctly. So we're just removing a portion of that time from those leads. Last one is ELD instructional supports for staff and materials. This was a new item last year that was sort of identified as a one-time item in last year's plan, knowing that we were going to have to continue to make reductions. So these aren't tied to specific staff. This is more or less extra hours for current staff. It's also to support some instructional materials that could be purchased one time to support students that are acquiring English language. So those are entirety the discussions or the items being discussed at this point in the process to be reduced or removed. Like we did last year, Dr. Paramo emphasized, we are reducing by more than what we have to cut. And the reason for that is what I described earlier. We're looking at what the needs are of our students and behaviors and identified that as a specific need that we have to address going forward. So through that process, what originally started with increasing the number of behavior interventionists by 2 in order to create equity across our elementary schools and to really meet the demand, we felt like we had to find other areas to cut. And so that's why you see that previous slide get longer and more items, and we see that we're pinching dollars here and there to make that happen. And that's where we've arrived at a dollar amount of reducing by 1.8 million. That means we will have 1.3 to reallocate, and these are the areas that we anticipate. elementary assistant principals. This is Miller and Jefferson. I referenced this earlier. These are our two largest elementary schools that could use additional administrative support. So instead of a curriculum specialist, those two schools will have an assistant principal. Our elementary wellness and attendance specialists. This is part of our SOAR program, which we're also going to be presenting tonight. And this staff is focused specifically on supporting students with attendance and behaviors. And this would make three positions available to support our elementary schools and the students there. This is a model that you'll hear about that's working and that we want to make sure we extend down to our elementary students. Elementary behavior interventionists, these are also known as BIs. Notice that it's 7 positions, but I had said that we would be supporting all 11 schools, of our elementary schools. We currently have 4 that we can dedicate to elementary, so this would be adding 7 to dedicate 1 behavior interventionist to every elementary. This was very important to our staff, especially our elementary principals, as the ability to make connections with the community and the students and be a part of the team and have a staff member to be relied upon when a significant situation arises at your school. It's really important to have that person there all 5 days of the week and have that consistency of the same staff. So that's where we're going to address those behaviors that we've been seeing. Last one is an equity piece, outdoor science school support and funding. This is to support a couple of our elementaries that have had significant challenges in fundraising to provide the outdoor science school opportunity to their students. And we want to ensure that all students in Burbank Unified have that opportunity. The last slide is, as far as our mid-year update, is about the Learning Recovery Block Grant funds. This is a part of the requirement for the state. If we have funds in this grant that have been unspent by the end of this school year, we have to include them in our planning for next school year. For Burbank Unified, we will be expending all of these funds at the end of this school year, so we will not need to implement an additional goal or any other part of the LCAP in order to identify how we will spend any of those remaining funds. So that's a good thing for us, that we've taken advantage of those funds and we've spent them down and don't need to identify how they'll be spent going forward. Lastly is our appendix, which I referenced earlier, if anyone's interested to look at all of our specific metrics. So I'll take any questions or concerns about where we are with our process for LCAP.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Anders. My colleagues, questions? Board Member Kano.
Just curious, with our LTELs, what percentage do we have right now?
Percentage of our population?
Well, of LTELs, the long-term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
LTELs are our long-term English learners. This is a new metric that really, it's not necessarily, it's going to be in this plan, but it's also going to be on the California dashboard as far as our accountability and looking specifically at any students that have been in the English language development program for, I think, over 4 years, 3 or 4 years. We do have a small population of this student. I don't know off the top of my head what the percentage is, but it is very small for Burbank Unified compared to other districts. So this is something that we will look at closely going forward as far as making sure that that population has special services to help them.
Thank you. Vice President Ponser-Kemp.
Thank you. On summer school, my understanding was that a lot of students took this to do their health requirement in the past. Are we concerned about the change to ethnic studies and them still being able to get that credit? That's maybe John. I don't know if that's a John question or
Great
Robert.
question. I'd love to answer that at this board meeting because we are getting calls from parents that have that concern. No, it's not going to be an issue. So in the past, to meet our health requirement during summer school, students have taken a semester of health and a semester of careers. What we're replacing is just the careers with ethnic studies. So it'll look very similar to how it did last year with a semester of health and then a semester of ethnic studies. And many of our vendors, our online schools that we work with, are providing that as a semester course.
Are they providing ethnic studies or no?
Yes,
Yes.
that has been a very popular course the last 2 years, and our vendors are offering it.
Great. And then maybe this is more of a comment, but I know last year when we did LCAP, we were able to move a lot of items to other funding sources, right? Like we heard a lot of like, we can pay for this with extended learning or ELAP funds. We might move this to the general fund, but there's none of that happening here, right? This is all just straight either cuts or closures of things that are currently vacant. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and you have questions? Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Anders, as always, for such a detailed report. I have a question. First of all, when it comes to ELD and some of the points that you mentioned. Now, comparatively to the districts that have similar demographics to our district, we are doing much better, right? Because I know there was a report that came out a while ago that you provided that did do a comparison. Is there something that we are also comparing it this time to, just for the viewers to understand?
With our ELD population
Generally,
specifically?
yes, when it comes to,
Yeah, I think honestly, to Moscato's question is, we do really well in that our and I wish I had the specific number. I'll see if I can find it. The number of LTELs that we have is very few. It's not significant at all. When you look at a lot of other districts, they have a significant number of LTELs, and those are students that have not been reclassified within that 3 or 4 year window, which really speaks to the quality of the program. The whole goal is for English language learner development is to get them out of that program, so that they can be in the general education population 100% of the day.
Yes.
We do a very good job with that. Yeah.
yeah, and I hear a lot of compliments from parents with ELD students because they want the students to move on and then, because they're looking at college eventually, right? And they want to do this
It's a testament to our community too. The parents and the students are very motivated.
and all your hard work.
to do their
so
best.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will just say that I would say for the last decade, our graduation rate in Burbank has been really high,
Yes.
always in the 90 percentile. Where we have gotten significantly better recently is in our graduation rate for our subgroups. If you look at the graduation rate specifically for special education, if you look at the graduation for our English language learners, it is amazing. It's really good. So I think that it is a testament to a lot of hard work. I also think it's a testament to where we're focusing our dollars and the OutCap plan to achieve the outcomes that we're achieving. So the ELD population is just tough because it changes so drastically year from year depending on the number of newcomers we get and where they are in terms of language development. So it looks like a big moving target a lot of times because it is.
Yes. My second, if I may. So just, I know we've gone over this many times, but I think now that we're having the official report for our viewers, and maybe Dr. Anders or Dr. Parama can quickly cover this. In terms of the creation of some of these positions that we're cutting, like the intervention specialists, a little bit of history and then what we're saving and with the new positions and just general so people know kind of, because not every district offers some of these positions.
That's correct. A lot of these are unique to Burbank and were created a long time ago. Intervention specialists were created over a decade ago. I want to first and foremost express the deep passion that these people have for their jobs and working with young kids. Their work has been invaluable. The principals will attest to that. Many of them have been in their positions for a very long time, and I've personally known many of them for years. So there is value to that position. And if our budget was different, then what I would be advocating for is the behavior interventionist and maintaining our intervention specialists. But we don't have that option right now. The money's not there. So this is a revision of how we service kids with a focus because of the volume of dysregulated students of changing the way we service our kids. And so that is the purpose, that is the reason. I think if there is an upside to this, there are several opportunities that our current intervention specialists have to be able to fill some of these new positions. So every single one of our intervention specialists qualifies for the 3 open wellness positions. So they have the ability to apply for those. I would say, it's just a guess, but I would say at least 3 or 4 probably have the qualifications to be able to apply for behavior interventionists. So when you think about it that way, there is theoretically an opportunity for 7 out of the 10 to be able to land in a position where they're still working with at-risk kids and a little bit different focus, but being able to still work with those kids. And so I'm hoping that because they're valued employees, they will take advantage of the opportunities and we will be able to place them.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarification. Dr. Weisberg. Oh, Vice President Pouncer-Camp.
Thank you. So, and maybe this is a question for Mr. Cantwell, because it looks like we projected the revenues from LCAP to be the same from last year, essentially, right? This like 11,351. Are we going to be in a similar position next year, given that our unduplicated count actually went up a little bit this year, right? Are we anticipating that we're going to need to make additional cuts next year?
Yeah, it's a really challenging question. The way that we are bridging the gap partially for this coming year is, if you recall back on one of Dr. Anders' slides, we're projecting a $373,000 carryover for next year. If that doesn't exist the year after, even if we see a small uptick in revenue because we might have more kiddos who are being identified in one of those categories of subgroups, we still may be looking at some expenditure reductions needed. So we're watching closely what the state's doing as far as the Prop 98 guarantee and other ways in which they're trying to meet their obligations for funding education.
Thank you.
We're also in declining enrollment as a district too, so we're like bucking that trend with our unduplicated count right now, but I don't know how long we can sustain.
And are you taking into account also additional federal cuts?
Yeah.
Which might be coming our way, but Dr. Weisberg.
I think it's more of a statement, I think. One, just a huge thank you to Dr. Anders and everybody. It's not only at this meeting, but all of the LCAP meetings. So if you're interested in sort of the nuts and bolts, I really want to encourage our viewers to tune in, because there's more of an opportunity to ask questions and to really dive in more deeply. So please take those opportunities. And if you've missed them, you can go to the LCAP tab on our website. And I believe all the recordings are up there, yeah?
Correct.
You can watch to your heart's
recordings
content.
and the presentation slides.
Find your favorite parts, make some sort of fun edit.
With translation.
Boom. But I think I wanted to sort of gently urge our amazing community to recognize that these cuts are excruciating, which I think everybody recognizes, whether you have parents or whether you have kids in BUSD or you work in BUSD, whatever it might be, that they're excruciating. And I do think that we're probably going to have to continue making these. And it's not because of fiscal irresponsibility. It's not because of mismanagement of funds. It's because we're simply being asked every year to do more with less. And I think that our team has done a phenomenal job in trying to make thoughtful adjustments to meet the needs of our ever-changing student population. We know that the behavioral and wellness needs in elementary are acute in a way they've never been before. And so we needed to make adjustments in order to meet those needs. And it doesn't mean that we're denigrating the amazing work done by our current intervention specialists, but rather that we're recognizing we need to provide more support. We've talked about it from the dais since we began conversations about the bond, which is that the reality is that we have to secure additional revenue. I don't know if you caught this, but on the slide that Dr. Anders prepared talks about unduplicated pupils. Even if you have a student who fits into more than one category, We only get funding for one of those, which is where unduplicated comes from. We know that it takes twice as much funding to support students who fall into both of those categories. We don't receive that funding. So we're going to be looking to our community to help us and make sure that we can show support. You know, that we've gotten so many amazing emails over the past couple of weeks in support of our intervention specialists, our teachers, you name it. We have to do more than just send emails. We have to be able to find ways to keep people in their jobs, to create new positions, and that's probably going to look like a parcel tax. And if you look around at our communities surrounding us, they've done it. It's time for us to do it. And it isn't because, again, we are hiding money away or we are top heavy. We almost have no top. I don't mean that in like, I mean that in that like we are our admin is very, very slim. If you go into the district office, for every one person we have in the district office, there's at least 8 people in comparable districts. So all of this to say that as we go through, what?
I was going to say, look right here. There are 7 people that run the district. They're
Right.
right here.
Right.
7 people.
Right. So all of this to say that, you know, we're talking about this in sort of very like cut and dry numbers, but these are people, these are programs, these are relationships that have been built with parents and with students, and every cut is felt by us, but we are going to need help in order to stop the hemorrhaging. And yeah, we don't know what the federal cuts will look like, and we don't know if we'll be able to secure a parcel tax. There's a lot we don't know, and I don't want us to get scared about the things we don't know yet. There's enough to be scared of that we do know. But I do think that context is important, so that if you're angry about these cuts, stay angry. You should be mad. I'm mad about them. I think every board member up here is extremely angry that we have to make these cuts. We're furious because we know what this does to the people who are employed in these positions and how much they care. Now, sometimes it's an adjustment so that we can better meet needs, but if you're angry, stay angry and advocate. Work with us to make sure that we can retain positions, create positions. If you're frustrated, stay frustrated. We are too, and continue to stay involved. And I wanted to say that because it often feels, I think, very overwhelming to look at this list of cuts. But I do think that there are things we can do to ameliorate them.
Can I just clarify something for the public, because I received a text message. The position, I inadvertently used the wrong title. So it's Wellness and Behavior Specialist. That is what is on our job description through Human Resources, and I think what I said was Wellness and Attendance. And it's not wellness and attendance, it's wellness and behavior. So I think that's an important clarification because it gets confusing and people are asking, wait a minute, are they two different positions? So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that before we stop the conversation.
Thank you. Clerk Talbot.
There are lots of things that we can be doing. I have been through 2 parcel tax attempts, and it's heartbreaking when they didn't pass. And, you know, as a business owner, as a property owner, I cannot personally always count every month that, you know, what I'm projecting to happen is going to happen. So I always have to have other avenues, and I think that's something we need to think about also. The community, I've been meeting with state officials, Assembly members, especially Assemblymember Schultz lately, to talk about some things that are going on in education that need to stop or change so that more money reaches us, because we're not being fully funded even by the state. We're not fully funded by the federal government. We're not fully funded. So what are some things that we could do? I mean, in addition to that parcel tax being passed, we've talked here, I've sat on my soapbox a million times. I'm finally having people listen about PERS and STIRS at 19% and 26% is killing us. That needs to be reduced. That's more money in our bucket. Community members need to be writing assemblymen, writing State Superintendent Tony Thurmond. They need to let people know that this is just not okay anymore. They're repaying a fund. The kids aren't even in school anymore when that happened. It's silly. The second, another thing, we have a large fund for project when there's developer fees that we can only use for growth. We don't have growth. So they're working on ways right now at Assemblymember Schultz's office to bring it before the Assembly to change how we can use that money. And these are the things that we and our community need to talk about to our elected officials above us, because our school districts aren't getting all the money that they should get. Like we talked about supplemental grants and the concentration grants that Burbank doesn't really get because we don't reach that 55% threshold. And this is a long-term project, but eliminate the threshold. Pay us for the kids we have. And that would go a long way. We can't put all of our eggs in one basket and hoping the third time's the charm. We have to do more, and we have to do it as elected officials. The community, the school district, kids count on us. We need to be speaking up. It's just not okay anymore. We just can't hope that a parcel tax passes and that's going to be all our problems. We need it to. We hope it does, but we have to ask for more. The thing I went to yesterday, IDEA, I can never remember the acronyms, I'm sorry. IDEA, which is an act from 50 years ago, where the federal government, you talk about money from the federal government, is supposed to pay 40% of our special ed expenses. What do we get, Mr. Cantwell? About 6%, you told me earlier?
Yeah.
They haven't been, it's not just a Trump thing that's coming up. They haven't been funding it for years. And so why is that okay? When you make an act and everybody just, everybody should be yelling and screaming about this. This is for our kids. This matters. It's not just about jobs, but it's about what those kids who need that the most are missing out on. Sorry. I came back really angry, which is not the norm for me. And so, yes, my colleague told me earlier, it's like banging your head against the wall. Yep, it sure is. But it's worth banging because our kids matter, and we just have to start yelling and screaming. Just like we talk about the things that are happening in our federal government, whether you like it or you don't like it, but you can't be quiet about it any longer. And we need to stand up for what we know is right for the kids in our community. So. Thank you.
And thank you, Clerk Tabbitt. There's going to be a lot of head banging. I think, and I love the passion of my colleagues. It is, as my Dr. Weisberg put it so eloquently, it's very difficult for us to make these decisions. And you're not angry, you're very passionate about this. So we need that. I wasn't angry. But we do need this. And I think, whether you like it or not, sometimes people put stuff on social media and not knowing the entire story. Pointing fingers at not looking at the reports. Again, Dr. Anders, you've done a phenomenal job. Continue to do so. I don't know how much more details you can get on this. But look, for the public, I encourage you to get involved. You should be angry. This is the future of our kids. This is the future of our city, the future of our state and nation we're talking about. More than ever, we need to focus more on education. And more than ever, we need to make sure we're united when it comes to our kids. We have elected officials who are very aware, who've already been reaching out. Our Assembly member, Mr. Schultz, who's been very, very accessible. And he has some good ideas that we'll be sharing down the road about changing certain policies that could even provide more funding, which we'll talk about it more, Dr. Paramo. But I think it is important for the public to know. You're more than, you have our numbers, you have our emails. You want to get involved, send us an email. We'll tell you where to go, who to talk to, because we need to have a united front. Yes, parcel tax, if it passes, great, but it's not a guarantee because, again, down the road, we're looking at other challenges that keeps coming up. We should not be our students and kiddos' education should not be so challenged. It's unfortunate. Where other nations are prioritizing education, we're sitting here, and as someone who does budgets all the time, I give you all credit about, I don't know how much leaner you can get. You're squeezing every fund out there, every penny out of what you can get. So I do want to acknowledge you for your hard work, and I also want to encourage our community to get involved. You have questions, we get emails all the time. The responses come very quickly. But before you get caught into this whole finger pointing, culture, learn more about the process, see how you can get active, and how your voice can matter if we're united. Any other questions for my colleagues? Thank you very much, Dr. Anders. Next, we have 11B, Strength, Ownership, Attitude, Resilience Program Update. Dr. Macias.
Good evening, distinguished board members, Dr. Promo, our superintendent, district leadership staff, and our Burbank Unified community. To help with this presentation, I want to welcome to the podium Ms. April Weaver, our principal for our alternative education programs and schools, and Mr. Juan Avila, our wellness and behavior specialist. Come on up.
Just wait till I'm done. Thank you. Okay. Oh, thanks. Good evening, Board President Dr. Agakanian, distinguished board members, Superintendent Dr. Promo, BUSD leadership team, and the Burbank Unified community. Thank you for letting me come up here and brag about my school and my staff, because they are amazing. It has been a challenging year, but a beautiful year. So we're just gonna go over a little bit of some of the programs that started this year. So when CDS closed in this school year, we had to decide what are we going to do to replace the services? And one of the biggest things was attendance and behavior, especially for secondary school. And so it was decided, okay, we've got to figure out what are we going to do? We can't just ignore it. We can't just stop servicing these kids and the needs of these families. So we kind of developed two programs. The first that I'm going to talk about is the Behavior and Wellness Program, which is Mr. Avila and Mr. Uribe. Can you go to the, oh wait, which one do I press? Oh, that one with the arrow, perfect, perfect, okay. I am weird and I always make my presentations this direction. So, because I think it's my teacher in me, because I would make these and they were like worksheets then, right? So, this is just the teacher in me. So far this year, and this presentation, I did this a few weeks ago, but this is what the numbers were a few weeks ago. So right now, Mr. Avila is the case manager for K through 8, and we have about 25 kids. So we started at 0. We have about 25 now. And the kids, we get more and more kids every month, because the way the kids enter the caseload is a couple ways. SARB meetings, every single student who goes to SARB ends up on a caseload to have a case manager to start building relationships with that family. SARB is the School Attendance Review Board, so it is our district level review board that meets with families who have chronic absenteeism. And another way that students end up on caseloads is through the DTRC process, which is the District Transfer Review Committee, which looks at kids who are struggling at school and possibly makes some involuntary transfer decisions or movement to other schools to give fresh starts or to add some services to that student. So Mr. Avila has about 25 kids, Marvin a little bit more. He's focusing on all the K through 8 programs, so elementary and middle school. Mr. Uribe specifically focuses on high school, and he has about 30 students right now. We have, of those children, we have 27 students that were behavior transfers, so that was through DTRC, or sometimes it could be a transfer through student services, but they're admin transfers. At this point, schools are not putting kids on the caseload. We're kind of keeping it special. It's really for these really tier 3 special cases that need a lot more support. 20 of them are from the SARB process or attendance. And we have about 6 kids right now that are doing really, really well that will probably be exiting soon. And we're going to start discussing, what does that look like? How do we know when a kid is done? Or, you know, they're good. They don't need this level. We're going to pass the support back to the school. They may still need support, but they can get more support at the school. And we had 1 kid graduate. so far. So the biggest goals of this program is to improve student attendance, build social emotional learning, improve behavior that impacts their learning, and builds communication and systems. Yes.
Just a quick clarifying question, because it's come up. So when we talk about improving attendance, the attendance we're talking about is not like, I missed a couple days because I'm sick. We're talking about acute attendance issues.
Yes.
So I just want to, could you speak a little bit to like, what kind of attendance issues do you have to have in order to
be SARB?
SARB, or
just
not even
that.
SARB, but this program, because you
Yeah.
could go to SARB and not be in this program.
Right. So, I mean, I think it's like 10% if you're gone, 10%. I mean, we don't have like a specific number because it's all different. Like, what's interesting is some kids will go to SARB, but they actually don't have a lot of full day attendance issues. They're just ditching. Right? So, like, they might have 83 misses to periods 1 and 2. So it's not just full day attendance, but it really is kind of case by case, what the needs are. Some students, we're still just working at the school site. Maybe it's a health issue or something else. So yeah, it's really case by case, and the student services does a really great job of, there's many levels before you get to SARB. So, you know, they should be meeting with the school and meeting with the families and meeting at the district office, and then it will get to this point. But they do have students on their caseload who have not been to SARB. They might have just, there's a need that we see, it's very important, and we have to start before it actually goes through the process at the same time. Yes.
Ms. Weaver,
Yes.
so in lieu of what's happening now with possible raids, have you seen an increase in attendance?
No.
Lower attendance because families and students are afraid to go to school?
I haven't, but you know, my school's pretty small, and my school, we're dealing with a lot of attendance issues all the time anyway. So these are generally the kids who have had a lot of trouble coming to school anyway. So I haven't seen an increase on my school campus. But, Okay, so here is the best part. So when we started this idea or program, we really were kind of like just making it up a little bit. Like, we don't really know exactly where to go because we're just like, we don't know for sure, but we're going to build it as it comes, right? So when I was sitting and reflecting, I said, what is it? Like, what have we done, right? It's been 1 semester now. Like, what is this? And after talking to Mr. Avila and Mr. Uribe a lot, because I'm always checking in and talking to them, I said, what has happened is we're realizing that this position is creating a bridge. That is really what we're doing. Because what we're finding is that for a lot of our families that are like at-risk families and families who have students who are really struggling in school, there is this huge gap in between school and home. And it's both. It's staff and schools and the families. They don't understand each other. they've broken relationships, there's trust issues. And so really what we're learning is, and I've seen it between, like when Mr. Avila's communicating with families, they're really trying to teach them how to trust the school system. Teaching the families how to communicate. When do you call the school? Who do you talk to when you call the school? And learning who do you talk to and the importance of coming to school and being engaged in school. And a lot of the families are really receptive. And they're really receptive because the behavior and wellness specialists aren't the school. And they don't have to make those negative calls about their students. So they go into this. So after like a SARB meeting or whatever, they go right and introduce themselves to these families. We have brochures, we've got business cards. We're going to call you. And we have developed an intake process. And it's like a process that they go through of working with families to get to know them. And the families, they're always calling them all the time with questions. And it's great because these are questions to them like, oh, they don't know that. Like, we really have to think about and remember that we work here. And so we know it and they don't know it, especially when it comes to special education. Because there's a few students they're working with, we're really trying to help the parents trust the system. We've really worked with parents to help them make an informed decision about assessment. Do you, this is the pros, this is the cons. It is your choice if you would like your child assessed, but let's make an informed decision about that. So that's been really, really great. And for staff, what we're learning is how little trust there is. We have families who do not trust anything we say. And that could be from previous trauma with school, or that's just previous interactions, but we're trying to fix those kind of broken relationships. And we have parents that have just very complicated lives, very, very complicated lives. A lot of the parents that come to SARB, I'm like, how would I deal with that? Like, I'm a parent. Like, I don't know how I would deal with that if that was my child or that was happening. And what I didn't realize really was how hard transportation is in this city. This city was not built for people that do not own automobiles or only have one car. The bus system, it wasn't designed for that. It is very hard to travel in this city, even though students get free bus. It's just very difficult. And we do have a lot of families that only have one vehicle and maybe their parent has to go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, or they do not have transportation. So that's something that I'm kind of looking at, because I realized when I was teaching many, many, many moons ago, there was like a little bus that would go around Burbank and stop at all the little stop at the schools. And I remember when I was teaching, tons of kids used that little bus. I don't remember what it's called, but that's gone. Yeah, it was something. And I remember, boop, it stopped right at Luther. All the kids got on and off. And also healthcare. So we do have a lot of families that have insurance. They have access to healthcare, but the system of healthcare is so complicated. So they might see a different doctor every single time they go in. And so the student is getting multiple diagnoses or not the right one or wrong medication. And we do have a lot of kids that are out a lot for health issues, and it's just, the parents are trying to solve these health issues, but it's just such a complicated system. So that is a little bit about the bridge that we're trying to build. All right. You know what? I guess let me take some questions on that program before I go into the SOAR program. Do you guys have any questions on the Behavior and Wellness Center? Yes.
You know I do. As far as it sounds like you've kept things pretty limited and like really, I think, being tight to who's actually coming into these caseloads. How many more students could you actually service? Like, I don't know what's a reasonable caseload for these folks who are like doing really intense work with students. I'm not saying like you should be working with 100. Like, I really don't know what that looks like for these folks.
I'm estimating about 40 to 50.
Okay.
That's what I think. I think that they would be able to comfortably do, still help students, still work with staffs, because, and it's constantly kind of rotating too, right? So the idea is that kids are graduating, leaving, getting better, new kids are coming in. That's what I'm guessing, but we might get to a point where we're like, can't be more than 35. You know, we're not there yet. I think we can handle and take on some more kids right now.
And so how would you go about, what criteria would you change to add more kids? Like, what would actually give you the most impact? Is it just bringing in more students through the SARB process? Is it getting referrals from teachers or how else would you bring more students in?
Well, I think since right now it's only February, we're going to end the school year with a lot more students, and so we're going to start next school year with a lot more students. The reason why it's a little low right now is because we started at 0. Yeah, so I think we can't open it up too wide, but it's absolutely, I think, that is one thing we are monitoring. How many kids can we add more? Who can add more? And really, the rule is it has to go through some sort of district process. So either student services tells us, or it's through those student services processes.
Great, that makes a ton of sense. And I don't want,
Right,
to be clear, I understand this is super intensive work, and I'm not asking to add a ton more people. I just want to understand kind of if you have a ton of students at the end of the year, if you've got 130 students that are eligible, do we need to hire someone else, right? So just trying to understand that too.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Yes.
I have like 2 questions. First, it says that there's going to be like 6 students maybe exiting the program. The 2 questions I have were, what's the criteria for them to exit, and like what grade level are those kids that might be exiting?
I think they're mostly high school.
Okay.
And we have the kids are working on goals. So, I mean, a lot of times when the kids come through these different systems, they're working on something specific. So either it's attendance or attendance and grades. So we have goals for them. And then we're constantly monitoring them, and we have meetings, all of us, and we look at it. And so it's a team decision too. So it's not one person who makes the decision if the student is ready to be exited, or even if a student's on a caseload. What's nice is we have the group get together and they all decide.
Okay. And do you have any like siblings type things, families coming through so that they're supporting the whole? Okay.
Very good question. Thank you. And we do have a few families with siblings, and I said regardless if it's elementary school or high school, if it's different, we want one case manager for each family. So we do have a few families that will have a high school student and an elementary school student, but I don't want 2 separate behavior wellness specialists working with the same family. So we make sure that there's just one person that's
Good,
like
for
the
continuity.
go-to person.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
Good question. Okay. Now, here we go. Okay. SOAR. Here we go. So, all right. So a lot of people are like, what does SOAR mean? Okay. It's an acronym for what are the most important skills I believe somebody needs to have in order to be successful. So you need strength, ownership, a good attitude, and resilience. So these are all skills that a lot of the students who are in SOAR do not have. So, and a lot of them, maybe they appear very tough and very strong, but they're not like necessarily strong in character or resilience or the ability to take direction, right? So these are the attributes that we are trying to build in the kids and explicitly teach them. So this year so far, we've had 13 students. We've had 2 students return to their home school. We had 3 students exit, but they're now at Monterey. So they're just at Monterey. They're not in, this is kind of a more intense program with monitoring. They are now free. But they're doing fantastic. We did have 1 student graduate, and we've had 2 students who have been suspended, which is pretty good for this school year.
Just a quick clarifying
yes.
question. So they were suspended from SOAR.
No, well, they were just suspended from school. They're still in SOAR.
Got it.
So yeah, good question. They are not suspended from SOAR. They were just, they did something that created a suspension. Yeah.
That's an amazing stat, to be honest, that this population has only had 2 students suspended.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, well, and I've told, Mr. Avila this all the time. I'm like, the work at this school is proactive. That's where the work comes in. So I know a lot of people come in, they're like, this school's so great. This school's so great. It's so easy. I'm like, do you know how much proactive work we have to do to make it look this easy? Yeah.
Second question. So with the SOAR, are the 2 questions, I guess. One was, what was the impact then of CDS students coming into Monterey? Because it seems like 2 different,
Yes.
seawater and river water kind of,
Yes.
And then
yes.
are a lot of the students who are in SOAR, were they coming from the CDS program?
Yes,
Okay.
most of them,
Okay.
yes, came from the CDS program. It's been good. The students have done really well. So the SOAR students coming in, at this point, so many of them are taking other Monterey classes. They're doing really well. They've made new friends. They've really been positive in interacting with the students. It is a different vibe when you have involuntary transfers versus voluntary transfers. So there is a different feeling at Monterey this year because we have the involuntary transfers to SOAR, and we also have some involuntary transfers from ILA, which we'd never had before. So the vibe is a little different. We're working through it, and we just have a different group this year, and so we're figuring out how to navigate that. But it's not negative in any sort of way. It's just different. They're much more career-minded versus creative, because we used to have a very creative, flowy, artsy, like fringy kind of group. And this one's more like, how do I make money? Right. And how do I graduate? So I said, okay, we're just going to have to pivot and focus on careers and that stuff. So a little bit about the program. So these were the things at the beginning of the year that we wanted to focus on. I wanted to take all of my special ed brain and all of my special ed knowledge of everything that works, and I wanted to just apply it to this gen ed program. So I created I worked with everybody on the best practices for behavior level programs. This is the kind of stuff that works with kids with special needs. It's going to work with them. It's going to be great. And it has done really well. So something that we have a leveled behavior system where kids have to earn points to get on their level, and they need constant feedback on their behavior. We were doing weekly progress reports to earn points and grades and put kids on their level. We have changed it to daily because they need much more constant feedback of their behavior, like hour by hour. So, and lunchtime and passing period. I get to do those behavior level system. We are working on SEL curriculum, and once a week, Mr. Uribe and Mr. Avila have lessons on different SEL curriculum. It's adorable. It's really adorable. I almost was like, oh, this is so cute. So they incorporate like meditation, and they have kids leading discussions, and they talk about mindfulness and self-regulation, and we go, and they're really respectful, and they're really doing a good job, and they really feel like it's like this safe place for them. And so it's really nice. It's their own little family, you know, and they trust each other, and they're almost like siblings. We've established a positive behavior reinforcement system. The kids love that. And we're trying to use restorative practices. We're not doing a lot of like discipline. It's more, you know, just trying to get them to understand that their behavior is their responsibility, which what I'm learning in this particular group, they do not think their behavior is their responsibility. They think that it's everybody else around them's problem. So, and we've made a lot of head with a lot of kids. Like, we've made a lot of progress with a lot of kids for taking responsibility. Juan has a great story about a kid who was doing really, really well. He was on the top level for weeks, and then he just kind of fell apart, and he fell down, and so he didn't have some of his privileges. And Juan walked him through. He was mad. He's like, you know, no, I'm not doing this anymore. This level system's stupid. I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to do it. And Juan's like, well, you liked it when you were getting everything, doing well. And he walked him through it, and the kid is like, okay. And he made better choices, and he got back on the top level, and then his mom was happy, and it was just, he's been on the top level since, right? So he only fell apart, and he came back up, and he's done really well. You can come over. Down, get back up. All right. Oh, here's some data for you guys. So we gave the kids a survey in December. I know, some of these are so funny. All right, so I mean, honestly, the most important thing for me as a principal is that everybody feels safe coming to school. That's like my most important thing. Like, I prioritize that above everything else. They have to feel safe. They have to feel welcome coming to school. And everybody feels safe, so that's great. So this is funny because I guess I didn't do something right in the Google form, and so people could write stuff in. So on the second one, when it says, was this helpful or not helpful, somebody wrote it whatever. So I think it skewed the data a little bit. So anyway, yeah. Most kids find it helpful, and somebody's like, whatever, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, exactly.
They're not saying not helpful. They're just saying
it's just whatever.
Whatever.
And then the leveled behavior system. And, you know, when we took all the data, we know exactly who says it's not helpful. I was like, you and you. And then, but everybody loves their check-ins with Mr. Alavila, of course. And then the Tuesday support times, that's what I was talking about. It's also whatever. But in general, the kids do love it. This was the best, though, of like, what suggestions do you have? My favorite, and it is be more strict. Yeah, like they really do. Like they really, and we were talking about, they crave structure. They crave it. And I think it's because their lives are a little out of control. So they crave structure, they want it. And there's a couple kids that just like, they're so angry when the other kids are acting out. So they want us to be more strict. They want more check-ins, nothing, or less patience with bad behavior. So they want me to be less patient. And then what do you like the most? They love the rewards. And we have Panther praises. We use that at all of Monterey. It's like we have our own currency. I don't know if you guys know that. It's like money. And then you can buy prizes and stuff. So they love that. They love the help. they love the support, and they love the people at the school. Of course they do. All right, so moving forward, what we would like to work on is building staff capacity and prevention at the school sites. So we're hoping that we can get to a place where we're like, okay, this is rocking and rolling. Let's maybe do some trainings at the other school site on some of the things that we do and help them implement it. Because it doesn't necessarily take lots of staff. Like, if you think about it, we got rid of CDS, we got rid of some other like positions, and we're doing the same thing with less people. And so sites can do this. We just have to teach them and show them how to utilize their staff and resources. We want to start parent education nights and building relationships with community resources for families. I mean, I talk to the adult school because I know they have parenting classes, but it's focused a lot on early childhood. And I talk to them, I'm like, do you have anything for like older kids? We need older elementary, middle school, and even high school. Parents need help with high school. They don't know necessarily. So, and we don't mind, I don't mind like, putting these on, but if like Burbank Adult School wanted to do, I mean, it might, a larger community, it might be able to have more outreach for people. So that is kind of what I've been working on.
All right, okay. So my colleagues, Vice President Ponce Kamkar.
This is great, thank you. Can you talk a little bit about, because you mentioned, some of the students in SOAR are now taking classes at Monterey.
Mm-hmm.
What does a typical day look like for a student who's just coming into SOAR versus maybe what it looks like when they're closer to exiting the program?
So everybody knows, most people here know Trevor Rapp, who's like amazing. Most kids come in and we put them with Trevor as much as possible. He doesn't teach 6 classes of SOAR all day because he's also teaching some other Monterey classes, but he'll teach an elective and Monterey students will be there, but we'll put the SOAR kids in there too, right? So we have them with him as much as possible, and as they get better, and we're still on the quarter system, right? So they've got 10-week chunks, and as they're making improvements, the next time we do our master schedule, and the next time we're scheduling, we might move them to another teacher, and then move them out to another teacher. And then, and we're also working with them, what do you want for a job? What do you want to do when you grow up? Oh, good, that elective would be good. Why don't you go hang out in that room and do that elective? And so they're really, really enjoying that. And so we are trying to get them into these classes as much as possible with other kids. And it's working, their behavior's better. The more they still need structure, and they still need somebody to be accountable to, but they're actually doing better than when I had them all together. And now I'm like, okay, we are sprinkling all of you. And it's really fascinating to see some of these kids make friends whom they've been at CDS for so long. Like, some of these kids were at CDS for a really long time, and now they're in this new community, and they think our school's so big. And they're like, oh my God, like, it's so, and I'm like, I was like, it's one hall. No. But they are really, and I love watching them interact and make friends with these other students that they've never known, or they might go, I remember you from middle school. Oh, hey, how have you been? And they're in 11th grade. So that's been really nice.
Thank you. Dr. Weisberg.
I think it's interesting that you talk about how beneficial it is to integrate with a larger school community, because it's easier to make substantial changes when you're sort of isolated, but how you retain those changes when you interact with a larger group of people is huge. My question is, if there were no limitations on money, time, anything, what would you want to sort of help take the program to the next level. Knowing we have all the limitations.
I know, exactly,
Let's pretend
right?
we don't, though.
No pretend. I mean, if there was no limitations, I would hire another teacher from Monterey so that they can take over the classes that Trevor's teaching. So because we had to cut staff last year, we had to cut our PE teacher.
Yeah.
So Trevor has to kind of really toggle between PE elective and the SOAR classes. And so if there was no limitations, but I understand that. But Trevor also is loving the larger setting. So he loves interacting with more kids, and he doesn't want to give up his Monterey classes at all. So I wouldn't do that to him. But the best part about Monterey is we're like, what do you want to learn about? What do you want to learn about? And then we like make classes. So all the kids love cars, right? So does Trevor. So now he's teaching history of automotives. And so he's spinning it like with like culture and all of this. He's doing a great job. And so all the kids want to take his class. So it's not just like, oh, you're the SWORD teacher. It's like, we want to be in Mr. Rapp's class. So it's awesome.
Well, and I think that could be a really helpful thing to include, like, because I know you're going to be sort of reporting back, but like hearing from you guys about wish list, I think for us is really helpful to strategize moving forward, because obviously you're having great success, but thinking ahead about what can we be doing to deepen it and what should we be thinking about, I think is going to be very helpful for us. So whether it's, and again, like whether we can do it in the moment is a larger conversation,
Right.
but just knowing that, because this is not, this is very untraditional in the best possible way. And so you guys are going to be able to best tell us what you need. And I think that for me personally will be really helpful to know from you mid-year, end of the year, because it'll change so much. Like what would help you and support you in a more meaningful way.
Classrooms and space too.
Okay.
So Monterey taking on these programs.
Yes.
It has been a challenge to find the
We're
appropriate
kind of
space.
busting at the seams a little bit.
I don't want to be out of order, but I did Dr. Weisberg, if I may, I do want to also kind of reiterate what you were saying. But also a wish list is important because we can, Ms. Tabbitt? Sorry. If we can also have a wish list that when we talk to our partners also, when it comes to funding, I think it's something that also they can look at, maybe supplies or any other stuff you need that we can say, hey, if you're raising money for our schools, well, here's an opportunity, especially when we're talking about, the district foundation.
I just want to point out that through the course of the presentation, what we heard from Ms. Weaver is that there is the potential that we could add maybe 30 or 50 more kids. The good news about that to the program that Juan and Elias work on is that we're looking for 3 more people to be in this position. So if you think about that, that's very easy for us to take on with these additional people that we're trying to fly these jobs for. So we will have that potential. And I don't think it's necessarily just, I know the number 50 was just arbitrary, but it doesn't have to necessarily be more volume. What it could be is that instead of just tier 3 interventions, you might be able to look at some tier 2 interventions as well. So it could be very beneficial for the kids.
Yeah.
Any of my other colleagues, any comments?
I've had a really rough day, and you really warmed my heart.
Oh, thanks.
I just, I might, sorry.
Oh, no. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
And I don't cry easily because, but you have, I mean, these are very special kids that have very special needs.
Yes.
They don't always have a place, and those are the kids that break my heart. And I've loved listening to you because not only have you created a spot, and thank you too, sir, and Mr. Uribe also, but when you see that a direction is not going as smoothly as you would like it to, I'm putting that, you're not afraid to go, okay, we're going to go this way now and see if this works better for the kids. And maybe this is going to work better for the kids. And I love hearing that because that doesn't happen in education. It doesn't happen.
And those questions like, if there were no time limits and no money restraints and et cetera, what would you do? And sometimes you're just so busy trying to figure out how to get those kids through the day in a positive way that to even think about the next step is just so daunting. But I just, you're a miracle. Oh,
thank you.
You're amazing, an angel for these kids. And
I do
Dr.
love my
Agakanian
job.
said, you could tell. You can
I do
tell.
love
and
my job.
When you were, when the kids say the people here, that's the number one difference in a student's
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And especially for these kids, is having somebody in their world that they think cares.
No, it's true. I have multiple kids who I'm the first good phone call they've ever had. And they're in high school.
Yep.
I had one girl who was doing really well. She like did a mural or something. I don't know. I don't remember what she did. And I said, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's great. Like, look how great that is." And she's like, I go, "What?" She goes, "You're the first person who ever said they were proud of me." And I go, "What? Me? Like, you're about to graduate in 3 weeks. Like, that can't happen." So I get it. I get what you're saying. Like,
They might not be where they are if somebody had done that for them. And now, thankfully, you're all there and doing what you can for them, because this may make a complete change in their life and what they do after they leave you. And that's
Yeah.
only better for all of us, right?
yeah, absolutely. That's why our graduation rate's so high. Thank you.
Thank you. I do also want to take this opportunity, if I may ask Mr. Horn, I'll be able to also come forward, because you've done a lot of work too. I know you've been sitting there patiently, but if it's okay, we also introduce yourself, because you also do a lot of hard work.
Thank you so much. It's just been a privilege to be working with Mrs. Weaver. I mean, she's an amazing, she knows it's the culture that we work with, and I think we both understand that culture. She's understand how much of a struggle it is to succeed. I completely understand. You know, I mean, even though she's white, she has struggles herself. She's but I'm a realist, right? But as a gay Latino man, I also know. I mean, because of these struggles, when these students come to us, where our approach is empathy right away, and it's not fake. They can smell you when you're being fake. It's completely authentic, and it's completely compassionate. And so I appreciate Dr. Tabbitt, Ms. Tabbitt, for Dr. Sorry, what you were saying, because it is an emotional job that we do at giving these students a second chance. And she's absolutely right. For a student to, for the first time, being told that someone's proud of them, and that's the case with a lot of our kids. I mean, some students, I say, "I love you." I'm not afraid of saying "I love you." And I think it's that compassion, that love that they succeed. So I encourage all of you to come visit us at Monterey and come check out our students. But yeah, Mrs. Weaver is amazing.
Well, let's hear it for Mrs. Weaver.
Thank you.
In closing, also, I know you brought up a subject that's transportation is a concern, but
Yes.
I also know that food insecurity, housing insecurity, and digital divide is also a big challenge. Even clothing, to some of the, you'll be surprised. I would love to, at one point, know if there are cases, and when we talk about partnerships, are we partnering with organizations that can provide meals if needed, or at least, some kind of a system where you can refer some of these individuals in a dignified way to help them? Because
Yeah.
I can tell you my personal experience, you'd be surprised how many of these individuals, as one of my students
Yeah.
said, takes me 2 hours to get here, I had one meal a
Yeah.
day, don't know where I'm going to
Yeah.
sleep at night. How do you expect
Yeah.
me to graduate, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Agakanian.
Yes.
I do know you have a very small but very mighty community group who is working to help provide things that high school students should get to have. And so I want to shout out to them too.
Yes.
And they would be a great way for people to contribute or come help
Absolutely.
or get
Yeah.
whatever stuff going. So Yeah, we're always looking for help and donations, and, you know, we don't have a PTA, we don't have booster clubs, we don't have athletics, we don't have things that bring in
Right.
funding.
Rotary just donated
Yeah.
to your cap and
Yes,
gowns?
Rotary donated cap and gowns so that the kids don't have to buy them. Now all we have to do now is get caps and tassels, so we're working on that. For every year, the caps and tassels, but we've got the gowns.
Yeah.
So, and we clean them, and I have them.
You should also make more of those stickers and T-shirts with your logo. We love those. I got. You don't have.
Oh, yeah,
them,
I
but
could, yeah,
bring
I've
them
got
back.
some stuff. I got the new bags coming,
Good.
and we're trying to figure out like what else we might be able to get.
Yeah.
So.
So if I may, I know that you mentioned at the next level, and I'm sorry if I'm judging, but our kids are very unique in their behaviors and their unique culture. So the next level would be a more therapeutic level, would be the next level on site, because they need an in-house setting where they can receive these therapeutic services. So if we have something good here, friends, we have a good product, and this is something we're going to build up. And yes, we want to take it to the sites so that they can create that, but then also especially for our SOAR program, the next level would then be now to have an insight therapeutic through play, through art, through music, something that these students need that they don't know they want, but then once they introduce, it's amazing how much I mean, we believe in, we built them and they will come. We built a Foursquare. We chalked out a Foursquare. Day one, Mrs. Tracy's Shaw was like, no one's playing with the squares. I was like, just wait a minute, they will come. Day two, in comes the big ball. So here we have these Monterey students, you know, playing Foursquare.
Yeah.
So again, it's therapeutic through play.
Yeah.
Therapeutic through art. We have an art club that the students come in and they're curious. They kind of sniff it out a little bit, but then once we offer it, so that's the next level that we want to bring into them, is that more of a therapeutic setting for them as well.
Thank you very much for
Thank
this
you.
wonderful
Thank you.
report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will.
Yes, of course.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 11C, report on BUSD Secondary Math Collaborative. Dr. Anders.
Thank you, Dr. Agakanian, President of the Board, members of the Board, BUSD staff, community. This is an update on our math collaborative at secondary. This has been a long-term investment with CalEd partners. Actually, we started with a scholarship on this, and we've turned over the work to our own in-house. So we're no longer working directly with CalEd partners, but we're doing all the work internally with our own staff. Big shout out to Greg Everhart, who's been a portion of his day is committed to moving this work forward outside the classroom. So our working goal that we established was that in 3 years, all secondary sites will have a PLC structure with meaningful collaboration with stakeholders, where stakeholders understand vertical integration based on standards. We're in a good place with our PLCs. All sites have established them. We've leaned heavily into structure with how this collaboration has scaled. I started with algebra quite some time ago, scaled up into the high school, and now has scaled down into the middle schools. And the secret sauce has been replicating a good structure for everyone to collaborate within. I'll talk more about the vertical integration and standards as we go through the next couple slides. So Math Collaborative this fall, there were math collaboration days. I'm going in backwards order, sort of, but there was a grading convening that took place. This actually wasn't planned, but it originated out of middle school pull-out day. So this is something that when our middle school math teachers, all of them met together, the conversation steered towards grading. And there was a lot of questions and a lot of dialogue about curiosity with their grade books and wanting to experiment, wanting to learn from other math teachers who have stepped out of the traditional points-based, percentage-based grading system. And so we dedicated a day to really work with the established leaders in the math collaborative, but also for any math teacher that was really interested in changing their grade practice to come and be a part of a discussion, a teacher-led discussion, inquiry-based, where people just got to really think about the reasons for their grading system and the logic behind it. Middle school had a math pullout day on October 2nd. That was focused on pacing and finalizing promise standards. Happy to report we just had our math collaborative meeting with our leadership group about a week or two ago, and all middle schools were able to commit that they feel like their pacing is aligned, which is huge. It takes a lot of time and effort to get to that point. And we can ensure that there's really consistent curriculum being taught across all of our sites, no matter what student you are and which classroom and at which school. High school, on November 20th, they did a blind grading activity with pre-cal, which is really amazing to get that collaboration at that really high level of math, and to blind grade and really for them to reflect on not only their grading practices, but the type of questions that they're asking students and making sure they're asking at a high level. There were also best instructional practices shared at that pullout day for teachers to really learn from each other of some of the innovative ways that they're teaching some of the standards that they've identified. Identified as critical. Site PLC department meetings, those are listed as the site PLCs and the number of meetings they had this fall. Shout out to Burbank High. It was a priority. Excuse me, take a drink of water. It was a priority for Burbank High to get those PLCs really off the ground. They've been doing the work, just not really having the space and time dedicated to do the work, and they have that. So that was really good. But all PLCs at all sites met at least twice, and those are all site funded. So thank you to our principals. We discussed this at all principals over the summer and asked our principals to commit funding to make this happen, and they did. So what they did, on top of what I just explained, they revisited their pacing for the semester and their promise standards and made sure those were aligned. They created a no-show chart for the standards that they've identified as promise standards. No-show chart, in a nutshell, is teachers getting very specific and explicit about what the prerequisite skills are to tackle that standard at grade level. There's a lot said in what I just said right there, because one of the focuses is to make sure that we are teaching our students at grade level so that they're prepared for the next sequential math class. There's teachers that are realizing through this process that they weren't addressing the standards at grade level and can do a better job at that. The show part of the no-show chart is getting very explicit about what we expect them to show mastery. What this does is it really creates a ripe environment for vertical articulation where teachers in the next grade level can know exactly what those students have been expected to demonstrate and can build on that with that consistency across the district. So we really see a lot of promise there. They've discussed pacing for the accelerated classes. It says that they need more time. They've actually done that now. So not just our math 6th, 7th, and 8th pacing, but they've also made pacing consistent across the district in our accelerated classes as well. There was impromptu conversations about grading practices that one of our board members was present for, and so she may ask a question about that or share her experience, but that was part of the reason we ended up having the grading convening that we had from the last slide, is because of that conversation.
Not because of me, though, to be clear. I was just there for it. We didn't have the conversation about grading practices because I was there.
Middle school, what they want to do, what's the next steps? Create common formative assessments based off the promise standards. This will give us actionable data to adjust based on whether students can demonstrate in a very formative environment what they know or don't know, and its opportunities for reteach or mastery. We'll collect timely data based on those CFAs, which I was just describing. Bring those results to the PLC meetings as well as the collaborative, and use the conversation to inform what they can do better in their practice. We've completed the pacing plan for the accelerated classes. A lot of these things have been done. Google Classroom to collaborate asynchronously, that's been built out robustly. So in addition to our textbooks, all of our teachers now have access to a shared Google Classroom that's a repository of all of our best instructional tools. So when we have, and this is important, we've had a lot of turnover with math teachers. This creates the roadmap for a new math teacher right as soon as they walk in the door. So onboarding our new math teachers has become completely different than what it used to be. They have exactly what they need to be successful. They've also created essential questions regarding their grading practices, which is what I'll slide later. Last I wanted to say is the sites have planned the last collaborative, last week. They know exactly what their focus is through the rest of this semester and their vision for next fall. So they've roadmapped everything on what they want to accomplish and the direction they want to go for the next 8 to 9 months. High school, what they did, they revisited their goals and promise standards to make sure that there's consistency there. They did a standard sort, which is basically looking at our CPM curriculum and doing an audit of the textbook. So they are looking exactly at the textbook and what it does well or doesn't do to tweak and say, maybe we're going to spend a little more time on this and add some supplemental curriculum on this standard because the textbook really doesn't cover it as much as we want at grade level, or maybe we can move through these other chapters. So in all honesty, this is going to save us millions of dollars potentially at the next textbook adoption because they've gone through CPM and audited it to the point where as a district, not just a teacher in a classroom, but as a district, they feel like they have exactly what they need to supplement where there's weaknesses in that textbook. So they're probably not going to feel the need to go adopt a new textbook when the textbook adoption comes. They've reinforced the existing textbook to the point where we've kind of created a bit of the right amount of supplemental tools to really make CPM shine as a textbook. There was also middle school teachers present for this, especially our algebra teachers that were part of the high school day, which has been very critical of helping students with that transition from middle school to high school to be successful in algebra as a freshman. That articulation was, we're going to continue to do that because that bared so much fruit of having some middle school teachers in the room. They also had a grading discussion about blind grading. And what that does is helps them calibrate of their bias when in their grading, not necessarily what we'd normally think of bias from a societal standpoint, but from a mathematical standpoint of they're experts in their craft, and sometimes they are looking too explicitly for certain things in the student's work, and losing a sense of, did the student actually show mastery, just not the way I specifically expect in my own classroom. Desmos is a tool that they investigated and showed the staff. It's a great online tool for students. The no-show charts and then pacing in Algebra 2 and then pacing in geometry. What high school will do, what their next steps are, is make sure that the CFAs are aligned across all high schools in all subjects. Algebra is aligned, but there's still more work to be done with geometry and Algebra 2 to make sure both schools are aligned. They'll collect and analyze those CFAs. They'll do a standard sort, which has occurred in Algebra 1 and most of Algebra 2 teachers, but not all. Continue to discuss and align grading practices, build out the Google Classrooms. Middle school, I have to give a shout out to middle school. They went from 0 to 60 with these Google Classrooms. High school's taking a little longer to build out that repository for all new teachers and existing. They've been showcasing best instructional practices. They've been investigating other math tools. So when we talk about AI and the dilemma of AI in the classroom, of it being used as a tool to cheat or to circumvent the learning, they are invested in identifying ways that AI or other tools can be used to expand the learning and create a more depth in knowledge. And so it's really exciting to see what they are investigating. Create essential questions for grading practices. Again, back to that middle school conversation. So I want to give an update on our monitoring of our grades. So these are the grade distributions across all of our core math classes. And you can see we've been trending in a good direction with Math 6. You can see that the A's going up. What we found when we start to really align our grading practices and discussions is things converge a little bit as opposed to being so separated. So we haven't gotten that work done in Math 6 yet as much as we have in some other grade levels, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So Math 7, you can see we closely monitor DNF rates. You can see that those have been going up and down, but have been dropping the last couple of years. I also want to note in all of these slides, 2024 is missing spring semester data. So all the previous years had fall and spring, whereas we're only looking at fall grades for this school year currently. So again, monitoring all of these. Moving to Math 8, this is the group at middle school that has taken and been the most engaged in the collaborative work so far to date. You can see that F rate has dropped considerably, and the D rate's hovering there. But then you start to see this nice distribution of grades across for consistency. Algebra 2.
Can we stop there for just a second? So I guess what I'm focused on is our goals as a district for middle school math. And it's this bottom 13% that we really need to focus on and get that closed up a little bit more. So that's what I would want to focus on.
Thank you. Algebra grades. The F rate historically and the D rate have been a big success, but especially the F rate and the amount of success going up with our A's and B's in algebra. This used to be like the death trap for students when they got to high school. No longer is the case. Although I think we've started to see a little plateau of some of our success, which is why we've been investing so much time into our middle school to prepare students for that course when they get to high school in algebra. And that's the real urgency with the work we're doing at middle school. Geometry, we see some separation here, but about a 17% DNF rate when it comes to geometry. This is something we've been talking about with students taking algebra over the summer has been a concern of late. Students coming in that have accelerated through that class specifically are struggling when it comes to geometry and algebra 2. So there's more on that in the coming years, but we're going to keep monitoring that to make sure the data holds true, and then we may have to look at whether we're going to support that acceleration over summer. It's a very significant course to cram into 4 to 6 weeks. Algebra 2, again, our grade distribution, that's again that discussion about some of those students moving through algebra quickly over the summer, but we're gonna keep looking at this closely with our algebra 2 students. So there's still more work to be done. We've had a lot of success. We'll see what the spring semester's grades look like once they've been added to these charts. But we keep monitoring. And that's really the truth of the PLC work, is it's never done. we're always getting new students with new things that we need to address. And so the PLC process of collaboration allows us to continue to evolve based on what the current needs are. Last piece I wanted to share is our second to last piece, I should say, we had a grading convening. This was really just investigations into our grade books. Who better than to do this investigation than math teachers when we're talking about the math behind why a grade book works or why it is the way it is. We did assessment investigations of the teacher and student view to really understand what demotivates students when it comes to assessments and grades and the feedback they receive. Because with math and specifically, we've talked about math trauma or just students' effect of feeling like they just don't have genetically designed to not be able to do math, and like debunking that belief. We talked about Hattie's visible learning model about students recognizing growth and their ability to continue to self-assess their own learning, and because we see that value in that growth mindset. And then we started creating some guiding grading questions. So this was really just a brainstorm for our teachers who were really interested in changing their grading system or stepping out of the traditional percentage and category-based grading. Instead of being explicit about this is what you should be doing instead of what you're currently doing, it was more guiding questions that they could use to analyze their current grading practices and feel comfortable making their own decision or collaboratively making a decision to change how they grade. And the goal there really is not just to decrease D's and F's. That is one of the goals, but the other goal is to make sure we're grading at grade level, that students that have a C or better are prepared to be successful in the next grading or the next class. And it's also to align with our local assessments and the state assessments to make sure that, again, students are at grade level and showing proficiency based off of how we grade. I didn't go through all those questions, but you can kind of reflect and see why those would be helpful in sort of analyzing and evaluating what they intend to do with their grade books.
Dr. Weisberg.
Thank you. Quick question, just because it's super interesting. Is there any, the gradebook investigations, is that like written down anywhere that we could see sort of the findings that they discovered as far as like what motivates or demotivates students? And things like the essential questions and the guided grading. I think that stuff is just so helpful to be able to look at in general. And certainly to share moving forward, as I think what the collaborative is going to do is continue to improve and serve as a model, hopefully for other districts. I think it'd be great to continue to document this.
Yeah, that would definitely be the next step.
Awesome.
I could share the experience that they had. One was the gradebook investigations, and the takeaway there was looking at actual gradebooks and being very aware of the unfairness or inequities that exist in points-based systems.
Sure.
And so, like I said, having math teachers do that and like feel very valid in what they're identifying as, wow, that's so inequitable that's how the final grade is determined. Open some eyes.
For sure.
The other piece was, as far as the assessment investigation, was really more personal in that we had them work, pretend to be a student and a teacher,
Yeah.
so that they had that actual personal experience of how feedback could be motivating.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really necessarily collect the data or articulate like what was or wasn't. It was more of that personal experience of having felt that.
Sure.
Because some of us haven't been students for a long time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed being pranked with the construction.
Oh, yeah.
Clerk Tabbitt.
So, I've been enjoying watching all of this, and I think it's beneficial for so many. It does not include special education and special education teachers.
The collaboration currently does not, but we've been talking about that.
So there is a plan to include them because,
Specifically algebra.
yeah, how great.
And otherwise, I think we have an equity issue if we don't figure out how to include them.
That's correct.
Well, many of these
So-
teachers are teaching collab classes, but you're correct, the dedicated special ed math teachers to this point have not. Yep.
So conversations are beginning,
Yes.
at least. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Board Member Kano.
Just right now with the middle schools, in terms of when they're, several questions. Number one, how long is the cycle that they go through in terms of, if they kind of doing it on a learning cycle, like you're giving it the assessment and then doing and then coming back? Is there a certain time they're used doing, or?
Right now, based off of the PLC meetings, they're doing for the most part, they're doing common formative assessments for each standard they teach during the year, but they're strategically identifying standards that are before their next PLC meeting so that the data is fresh.
Yeah.
We would love to build out more PLC times, but based off of, like, if they've had 2 or 3, then they were able to do 2 or 3 cycles during the semester.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 2 or 3 during a semester?
Yeah.
Good deal. Now, the CFAs they're putting together, they're coming from scratch, or are they like going and using like the IABs or something, or,
Middle school's investigating IABs.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows what an IAB is, we're having a whole teacher conversation right here. Those are interim assessment blocks through the ETS CASP. So those questions specifically are very closely aligned to what they'll see on the CASP assessment. And they're focused on specific standards. Middle school's investigating those because they're in the process of building out their common formative assessments and feel like maybe that's a good direction to go.
Yeah.
High school has built their own from scratch, which there's added value in that it forced them to really be even more familiar with the standard they're assessing by creating their own. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other question, do we have a subscription to Desmos?
We do not have a district subscription. I believe some sites have purchased it, but otherwise they're using the free version.
Okay, and then we have, because I talked to somebody, we have DFIT right now, because you were talking about things, the idea of using AI and how teachers, so we've got DFIT like maybe when?
DFIT, because we have a couple.
By the way, can you tell our viewers what all this terminology DFID and
DFID is an AI tool for teachers, and it really helps them differentiate for students. So what the AI tool does is takes like an existing worksheet or unit, and it can scale the Lexile level of the text. So that if you have readers at different grade level readers or English learners, for example, that you can make it more approachable, the topic that you're covering. But it also can take a worksheet or teaching strategy and morph it to be specific to your learners or the topic.
Yeah.
To answer your question, we have a couple sites that have purchased it, so DFIT has worked to provide us open access for all of our teachers through the end of the school year.
Okay.
I'd caution with that, though. We are under budgetary concerns, so I've made sure our faculty know that there's no guarantee that we'll be purchasing next year, but it's a great tool to explore.
But isn't it, is it with DFIT or with Brisk, that once we've made it, even on the free subscription, that it'll, like, whatever we create stays there, so we can still go back to it? We just won't have access to certain things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This isn't a question for Dr. Anders. I'll give him a break. But I wanted to share my experience in doing some observations and in attending the professional development, just because it was kind of mind blowing for me, frankly. But so last spring, I think I went over to Muir, and we were able to have a student show us his formative assessment, and he basically could say, well, I was able to do this and this and this, but I did the sign wrong, right? I had a plus instead of a minus, and so that my whole answer is wrong, but that doesn't mean that I did everything wrong, right? And so he was able to really delineate what pieces of it he needed to work on and pay attention to, but I think felt very successful in that particular standard because it was not an error in that standard. And so I say that to say that when I went and observed this middle school pullout, the teachers doing their no-show charts, what I saw them do, and you might correct me, but this was what I remember from a couple months ago, was, they had a problem that they wanted to solve, right? And so the first thing that, a group of teachers would do would say, okay, this is how I would solve this problem, or how I would show it on my chalkboard, right? Or my whiteboard. The next thing that they would do is look at a number of example student responses. Not all of them are going to be right, right? Some of them are going to have, function like computational errors, like I mentioned. Some of them are going to have errors with the standards, right? And so if you think about something like multiplying two parentheses, right, that each have 4x minus 6 times 2x minus, 3, right? So there's a couple of different things you're testing for there, right? You're testing for, do you know how to do FOIL, right, in terms of where you're distributing? Do you know how to do order of operations? Do you know how to combine like terms? Are you making sure that you are computing correctly in terms of getting the right positive or negative on each thing? And so then on this chart, right, they're saying, I need my student to know these 6 things to be able to do this one problem. And this is how I'm going to be able to look at their answer and see if they did those things. So then they would take all of the example student responses and say, okay, this student did these 4 things right and needs to work on these 2, right? And it was so cool. And I think it was a really cool experience for them to see that because, I love that this conversation about grading is happening, but I think even outside of whether it is applicable to a student's final grade in the class, I think it just creates a very different conversation between student and teacher. And so I want to give a lot of credit to Dr. Anders and to Greg Everhart and folks for making this happen and continuing with it, because I make up that it's got to be hard to keep up this kind of momentum and not only keep going in math, but now to start moving it to English. But it was just very cool to see the kind of conversations that students could have about their math work and the kind of conversations that teachers were having with each other about, oh yeah, maybe you do it differently than me, but you're actually still showing that you can do these 6 things. It was very cool.
And look how excited we get on math.
Well, and what I was
Weisberg.
going to say too is I think that what it does is a sort of sneak attack, because you do often deal with teachers who've maybe been in the profession for a really, really long time, and you talk about grading differently or grading more equitably or changing the model, and there's an immediate sort of, and understandable to some extent, defensive-ness that comes up. Well, this is how I've been grading my whole career. I'm not going to grade differently, but I think if it's in that context where you're able to see how changes impact student learning, and you're also able to see it may take a little more work, but it's not reinventing the wheel, hopefully. But I think it's a more palatable way to introduce teachers to a more contemporary best practices grounded way of grading that doesn't feel like they're being threatened as much as they're being exposed. And I think that's really important when you're trying to get we know that one of the hardest things is to get an entire team of teachers to adopt something. And I know that's what we're not suggesting that everybody do all of this all at once, but I think just the exposure in and of itself is so important. And so listening to you talk about your experience and listening, Dr. Anders, to you talk about the sort of light bulb moments when people were just looking at grade books. I think it's just such a powerful tool and something that hopefully more people will embrace rather than sort of immediately put up their shackles about.
Well, if you think about,
Dr. Paramon then.
I was just going to say the alternative to what you 2 ladies just described is a red pen through a question that says it's 0 and it's just wrong.
Right.
And then you feel defeated because maybe 2/3 of it was actually right and I just messed up on the last part. And so why am I going to try if what it feels like is I just did the whole thing wrong?
Right.
And-
I feel like when I was in school, there was a lot of show your work, right? But you didn't get a lot of credit for showing your work, and you didn't know why, what you were doing right and what you were doing wrong. So if you have a student that has missed the part of, if you multiply a negative by another negative, it's a positive. And so they get half of their questions on it wrong, even though that's not maybe the standard that's being tested. it's really hard to, I think, disentangle all of those different standards when you're assessing, unless you're doing something like this. So just, I'm pumped about this.
It's student focused.
Yeah, microphone.
It's so student focused that it's a wonderful win, you know, for kids. Because you're right, Dr. Paramo, when you said getting the answer, well, it's important. It's not the end all be all. And a lot of kids, myself, I got 10 wrong. Okay. No one ever goes back and goes, why'd you get those 10 wrong? What were your steps? So this is lovely. I can't wait to see what you do
Don't
with
cry,
English.
whatever.
I think teachers are invested and will put the time in, because the alternative, if they don't do that, is a classroom full of kids who have turned off because they're not feeling successful. There's no part of the work that makes them feel successful, and so they just shut down, and that's not easy for a teacher to have to deal with.
And it comes across eventually in their CAS scores, because their students, I mean, I'm competitive, so that would kill me if my students weren't achieving because I wasn't helping them achieve, really, is what it comes down to. So,
Yeah, I do think even with our grade distributions, it'll be interesting to continue to monitor, because we are seeing that the rigor is getting cranked up for kids. So even though that DNF rate may not be as the trend that we've seen and has been celebrating, that doesn't necessarily mean that the learning hasn't increased in those classrooms.
Any of my colleagues on the other comments? So, thank you, and thank you for this wonderful report, Dr. Anders. I have a quick question in terms of CAS and standards and students, meeting those standards, because at the end of it also, right, is how well do they do and do they meet the standards, especially when it comes to transfers. I know that there have been changes in grading and requirements for college transfers or preparation. And I think one thing also, I think Dr. Parama, we've talked about this in the past, is even the assessment system itself, it changes consistently. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? The way the assessments come down, even from the states, they change, and sometimes our teams have to adapt quickly.
That's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. But thank you for a wonderful report, and with that, we're going to move to the next item. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Okay, 12, new and/or unfinished business. 12A, adoption of Resolution 23 proclaiming March 2025 as Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, Special Education.
Dr. Agakanian.
Dr. Weisberg.
I move that we approve Resolution 23 as presented.
We have a motion by Dr. Weisberg, second by Board Member Kano. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to read the resolution.
Sure. Yeah. Whereas in 1987, President Ronald Reagan declared March to be Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, whereas quality and effective programs can lead to significantly positive outcomes for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, whereas individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities often require a lifetime of specialized and community support services to ensure their health and safety and participation in the community, whereas individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities are living and working in the community, pursuing higher education, developing their faith, falling in love and getting married, and making their voices heard in all aspects of life, whereas Burbank Unified School District employs qualified and caring individuals who strive to support the education and lives of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities and support their families, whereas Burbank Unified School District is dedicated to developing and sustaining programs and resources that support students with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families, whereas March 2025 is designated as National Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month to increase public awareness of the need to support individuals and family members, educators, and other professionals who teach and care for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities to ensure they are respected, valued, and fully included in the community.
Thank you very much, Dr. Weisberg. 12B, approval of comprehensive school safety plan. Ms. Markison?
I think that's it.
Anything like you like to share with the viewers before we make a motion?
Only if you have any questions.
Have any questions? Okay. Can I get a motion?
Hey, thanks. That was easy.
So moved.
This is just our yearly process. Every year, we have the schools put our safety plans together. Those are available for our community to be able to see. But we have gone through the exercise of updating them, and we are prepared to have you approve them as presented.
And then just to add, once they are approved, they will go up on each individual school's website.
Appreciate it. We have a motion by Dr. Weisberg. Can I get a second, please? Second by Vice President Ponser Kamkar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
12C, acceptance of notice of completion, video surveillance cameras, Burbank High School, AMS.net. Mr. Cantwell.
Yes, in June, you approved the installation of additional video cameras at Burbank High. As a reminder, Burbank High previously had installed. We ended up adding new cameras to Burroughs, and for equity, we wanted to make sure they both had the comparable number of overall equipment. And so this was to bring Burbank High up to being on par with Burroughs. The project is completed, so this is our notice of completion.
Thank you. Can I get a motion on this, please?
So moved.
A motion by Dr. Weisberg, where cameras at Burbank High School by AMS.net, PO 2500771, not to exceed $139,540 and 56, as presented and seconded by Vice President Ponser Kamkar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. 12D, adoption of proposed 2025-2026 instructional calendar. A motion by Board Clerk Tabet. Can I get a second, please? I have a second by Board Member Kano. Ms. Rajenko, anything you want to add to this?
I just think, thank you. A few things that are most significant is we have the first start day on Wednesday, which is a Wednesday, August 13th, which is a little different. It makes it for a nice short first week of school. Everyone gets acclimated and gets some good 3 days of school, sort of set the stage, and then they'll have a weekend to rest before we go into a full week of school. So that's one significant change. We also have, in the past, we've had 5 pre-service days. We'll continue to have 5 pre-service days, but 3 of them will be at the beginning of the year. Those are pupil-free days where the teachers have professional development, set up their classrooms. There will be 3 days, the 8th, the 10th, and the 11th, and 10th and 11th, or 11th and 12th, excuse me, in August. And then we'll have 1 day in October. It'll be a pupil-free day for professional development. And also April 24th, which is Armenian Genocide Remembrance Day. That will be a pupil-free day.
You have Dr. Weisberg, followed by Board Clerk Tabet.
2 questions. Question 1, I would like an additional layer of noise at our next board meeting, please. So we have sirens and construction. Can you add a 3rd layer?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My other questions are as follows. I just want to reiterate that this calendar has been discussed with both of our union, or all 3 of our unions before, I don't know, coming to us, just to make sure that this is something that everybody's on board with. That's correct?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. My other question is, I know there's been a lot of discussion, and thank you for it, in regards to like board meeting schedules around religious holidays. And I know something that's come up in the past couple of years is the kerfluffle around like sports practices. Is it possible, I know that like after-school sports aren't instruction, but I wonder if we could add to the calendar, like there's asterisks down here for like the shortened days in lieu of it. Is there a way to add the days where we are saying you cannot have athletic practice? I know it's not new, and I know every year we get emails and we say this has been happening this way for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. I wonder if having it in one more place, and if you feel like it's overkill, it's overkill. But to me, it feels like it's just another stopgap so that people see it, and we can say, well, it was also on the instructional calendar.
I think it's a great idea. I know Dr. Macias works on the Jewish holidays along with Dr. Kanapik. So I think what we can do is merge those two documents so that they're all in one place and you can visually see it when you look at the instructional calendar.
It could also be useful, and maybe this is a bridge too far, but for holidays like Ramadan where you have students who are fasting, just as a reminder for I'm sure this will be an email we send out to our coaches too, like please. But I do think it's worth noting for our classroom teachers and for our coaches, when we have students who are fasting for a month, that we remind them that they're going to have students who are, their attention is challenged, they're maybe a little less focused because they're not eating and drinking during the day. So I don't know if that part belongs on the instructional calendar, if there's something separate, but I certainly think when we're doing something where we're restricting normal behavior, i.e. like practice, it could perhaps find a home there.
To add to your comment, we're also working on a visual type of a calendar. That's been an ask of the parents, just sort of month by month, where you see it visually, and that way people can put it on their refrigerator, but it'll also have the detailed written page as well. So we're working on both.
Thank you.
Clerk Tabbitt, I couldn't hear it from all the bank. Go ahead.
Well, I've done this all night, jump onto your comments. Could we send an email to Justin Hess tomorrow?
I already asked him.
Oh, you did? To send him an email?
Yeah.
Out loud?
No.
I'm sorry. Oh, good.
No,
Okay.
no.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Explaining what happened tonight and that we do pay for this room and the use of it, and I'd appreciate it. If you want it to come from the board, I'm good with that. Okay. Oh, I didn't think about that.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What? No.
Nothing, don't worry about it.
All right, Vice President Ponser Kamkar.
The other thing to email Justin Hess about is that week before school starts, there's no camp in the city of Burbank. There's no camp. There's camp, and Burbank Parks and Rec just does camp the week before we start school at one location. Yeah, it's a little bit of a disaster waiting to happen, and that is feedback that I've gotten from other folks with young kids who need to be in camp, that midweek start, while it's probably nice for a lot of ways, it's really hard for families who need to have childcare. So something to think about. I know Dr. Weisberg has already brought up having ATB during teacher work days. Our teachers are also going to need care for their children on those days. Okay, great. That's great that Boys and Girls Club is going to have camp. I don't know that that's going to fully absorb everybody who needs to be there, especially because this is different for us, right? And we haven't talked to anybody about it other than to kind of put it in our meetings to signal to them, like, hey, by the way, we're going to need camp. Like the only other one that I've seen outside of like Burbank is like, hey, you can still go to beach camp at the low, low price of $165 per child per day, and then also make sure you send them a lunch. I know, isn't it great? Camp is awesome. So as per usual, I will just like register my gratitude for the calendar committee and the amount of work that they have done for this. This is not about anyone in particular. I really appreciate it. I know you guys are working really hard on this. I think it is really hard, while we have problems at every single school with air conditioning, to start school in the middle of August, because the middle of June is not 115 degrees. It's not cold, but it's not 115 degrees. So I will just continue to say that we're not doing any AC over the summer. We're doing all roofs. So this is still going to be a problem this summer. So that's my piece. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you again for bringing up these concerns in a very eloquent and in a very polite manner. So we really appreciate your comments. Well, polite, sorry. All right, any other comments from my colleagues? All right. Go ahead.
Just, I know there was an issue early on with the number of days in each semester. Are those even now? Where are they at in terms of first and second semester?
They're not quite even. There's a few less days the first semester than the second semester. But it's off by about 7 days, I think.
By the way, just for clarification to our viewers, I am not gaveling banging my gavel. It's actually the, oh, they can't hear it? Oh, okay. I got a text, someone saying, what's going on? So, sorry. All right, next, consent. Oh, sorry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you very much. Next item, consent agenda. If any of my board members would like to pull an item.
I have questions about an item, but I don't want to pull it.
And what are your questions, Dr. White?
On item, hold on, let me just find it. Oh my gosh. Wait. The approval of instructional consultant services, but I need to figure out which one it is. It could be 13F. It could be 13G. I think either one. So my question is, in looking at all of this, this is like, and they look like really great programs. Is this coming from like Prop 28 money? Where is this coming from? It's all art, music, dance.
It's Fund 10, if that's helpful, it looks like.
Not particularly.
Items that are resource 67700 would be Prop 28. Resource 65000 would be special education. I'm
Thank
not
you.
sure what 901
Here.
90210.
on
Or
13F.
01? 90201.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's a song.
90201.
Low bar. That's really helpful.
Yeah. I can't remember.
I mean, I don't,
That's donations.
this is donations.
It's donations.
Okay, and again, my question isn't because I find them to be suspect. I was curious to know where it came from, since some of them are pretty big ticket items. So the nines are the donations.
Donations.
Okay, great. That was my sole question.
So
Thank
we're
you.
not pulling the item, Dr.
No, I
White?
had no interest in pulling. I was just
Thank
curious about from whence it came.
Thank you. Any other? So may I have a motion and a second to approve items 13A through 13O?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Weisberg, seconded by Vice President Ponser Camcor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Now we have reports from the board. Dr. Weisberg.
Thank you. Okay, hold on. Where are my notes? I want to take a point of personal privilege to congratulate one Mr. Andrew Quiterio for his acceptance into his dream college, and a huge congratulations to Cindy. It's his birthday today, right? We're not singing. It's his 18th birthday, but I think every parent, not that I'm one, don't worry, ask around, but people who are parents know that it takes so much work to get your kids through school, and the fact that he not only got into his dream school but got a scholarship is a huge testament to him and his whole family. So I just wanted to take a quick second to shout him out and shout his mom out. I also wanted to I had an opportunity over the past week and change to meet with some amazing BUSD staff. I wanted to thank Edith Chavez, Laura Bauman, Archana Vazirani, George Garabiji. Did I do it wrong, right? Cool. For taking the time just to meet with me. I know there's lots of changes in the district, and it's always really helpful to hear from everybody. So I appreciated them taking the time. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Dr. Weisberg. Board Member Kano, any reports? Thank you. Board Clerk Tabet? No? Vice President Ponser Camcor.
Thank you. I had a couple of opportunities to go so far away to Burroughs High School over the last couple weeks. I know it's really far for me. Yesterday I went to CTE Day. Was very cool to see just the number of vendors they had. And Dr. Macias might correct me. I thought it was over 150 that showed up from kind of all different possible post-secondary options, and I guess secondary options because they had student jobs available through the city and other places, which were very popular tables. So thanks to the folks that put that on at Burroughs. And then I also attended their PTA meeting to talk just about the bond a little bit and how that is going was kind of the question. And they had questions about the 7-Eleven committee, when that's getting started, when we would be getting started on a new oversight committee, and they had a lot of questions about scheduling that I think we've sorted out since then with Mr. Knoop. So thank you to the John Burroughs PTSA for inviting me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I do want to also, just quickly, I did attend an opening of a new music school in Burbank. It's called the Burbank Music Center. And the group actually works with students with disability. And so we're going to be visiting the center with Superintendent Paramo. They're very, very interested in partnering up with some of our programs as well. So I'm very happy that this is happening as well. With that said, going into retirements, first retirement is Gloria Luz Hernandez from Children's Center, a teacher. She's been with us from 2006. We have also Joanne Becker from Miller Elementary School, was a teacher from 2004. Elizabeth Wood, Thomas Edison Elementary School, elementary teacher, 1998. And last person, Rachel Goldman, special ed teacher from Hart Elementary School, started the services at 2021. Thank you for your services and enjoy your retirement. With that said, we will be adjourning our meeting at, what time is it? 8:56.